Bees. Hello, hello. Hello, my friends. Just getting the announcement out that we are starting this good old stream here. It's in my Discord. And the crew. Everybody on Twitter and the like. Wow, look at everybody here. This is a big crew. I'm feeling good, guys. I'm feeling real good. I made sure that got the mic settings all nice and super duper here for you, so that we can get this ball a rolling. And yeah, all that kind of good stuff. So, Chrissy, you say you listened to all my videos. That's crazy. I appreciate that. It's good. It's good. I hear people like to binge watch them from time to time. So that is awesome. Looks like, yeah, all of them. Mr. Ninja, Win Ninja, you need to catch up, my friend. Just kidding. That would just do a Let's Read marathon. Just let yourself drift off to the world of make-believe and, well, true, I suppose. The world of make-believe being your nightmares, maybe. I had a spooky nightmare a day or two ago where I was trying to capture these particular spiders, and I'm not exactly sure why I was trying to do that, but one of them was a black widow spider with like the red dot on their black sort of thorax. I don't know if you call that, or butt, essentially. But then and I caught it in like a Tupperware container, and then a friend of mine or something that was in the dream or whatever was supposed to hold the Tupperware container, and as that happened, it like broke out of the Tupperware container, and I thought like, okay, now I just have to keep an eye on it. But then all of a sudden it like jumped into the air, right onto my finger, bit my finger. And then I woke up, which was the weird part. I like felt the pain of my finger being bit, and woke up actually thinking that something in the real world had actually like bit me in my bed, which really freaked me out. But I guess thankfully that didn't happen. Alfonso Nodal with the $5. Thank you, Alfonso, kicking the stream off here. Nice and good. Like, Alfonso, did you have a particular story that you would like to have narrated, whether it be true or paranormal? Or if you're just supporting the stream too, hey, that's good times. But I'll probably kick off by reading something. Face reveal. That's always the big question. Guys, I've told you a million times, I do not have a face. It does not exist. Face reveal at 100K. We've long surpassed that number, and yet, yeah, maybe 5 mil. At 5 mil subscribers, if I somehow still exist here on YouTube and YouTube still exists, just gotta help me make it happen, guys. Gotta share the videos. Tell your aunt, uncle, grandma, your dog's niece. Just let them know. Let's Read's got the stories, and they got the ears for listening. But, yeah, just to kick things off, guys, here, voice reveal at 50K. You've already got it. Yes, me and Your Maker sound alike. That's a funny one. Me and Your Maker have done a collab in the past. So you can actually directly examine, or at least compare our voices, but I have heard that we are very similar in our sort of talking patterns and maybe, I guess, voice frequency. I'm not sure if that's the term or not. Nisa Chowdhury with the $20 says, hey, just saw a notification, so came to donate, but gotta go. Please read a paranormal story for everyone. Thank you. Awesome, Nisha. Appreciate that. You bet. Sorry you can't stick around for long, but hopefully you'll be able to come back and check the stream out in the playlist here when it's posted. It's posted as a unlisted video in the streams playlist, and then you'll be able to check that out later and catch your story. Sons of John with the 5 says, haven't caught one of your streams for months. How you doing? And could you read a creepy wood story? Absolutely. Sons of John. I am doing much better. I am completely outside of my sick zone, which oddly enough, I feel I used to like when I was younger, it used to take like 3 days. Oh, you're not sick anymore. Then all of a sudden it turned into a week. And now I feel like being sick is like a 2-week process. So sadly, I think my body is slowly just deteriorating into poo. A big pile of poo. All right. So this happened about 11 years ago. My youngest son, who was around 2 years old. A little backstory first. I was very close to my paternal grandmother, who would spend weekends with her and I. I would spend weekends with her and stayed with her when she had a hip replacement done when I was 17. She loved ghost stories and would watch daytime talk shows and psychics and such. One day we were watching a show and Grandma told me when she passes, she would send me a message somehow. I said, okay, Grandma, and never thought about it again. Oh, sorry guys, that's the garage going. Roommate's heading out for the old grind. Fast forward to when I'm 26 and a mother of 2. The youngest is almost 2 at this time. My grandma just passed about 2 weeks prior. I was on the phone with a friend while doing laundry in the basement. My son is playing with his toys across the room. I'm keeping an eye on him and he's acting like most little kids do. He's building stuff and talking to himself. He picks up a book and holds it up in front of himself and says, Mama, read. Mama is what we called Grandma in my family. I say, no, baby, Mama is at work. He gets mad at me and says, no, Mama, read. He looks back behind him and he drops the book and runs to me. He's screaming and crying at this point. He hangs on to me and won't let me go. We go back upstairs and I calm him down. He acts like nothing happened. Later on, I was thinking about it and thought maybe he had seen something I couldn't. So I call my dad and we decide to see if we can get my son to say who he was talking to in my basement. I go to my parents the next day and they have some old pictures out on the coffee table. I ask my son if he knows anyone in the pictures. He looks at them for a little bit and picks one of my grandma who had just passed and smiled real big. He yells, Mama, read. Over and over again. Yeah, it's creepy. I do wonder, like, some little kids, that seems to be a commonality with stories. Like, kids and animals seem to be more prone to being able to visualize things of the paranormal. My assistant pastor, he has, like, 3 kids, and he always talked about, like, his youngest son as he was going through his early years having would wake up in the middle of the night and sort of almost in some senses like seizing or something like that, though he never really had any sort of like epilepsy or anything like that. And then he would sometimes say that he would see things, and then whenever they would like sing praise songs or whatever, like typical church stuff, he used to like cover his ears and just like hated it. And that eventually kind of caused them to, they were purchasing a house, so they eventually moved and bought a house or whatever. But, they definitely said that house had some sort of energy to it that was odd. Thankfully, I don't think that followed them to any further locations or whatever. But yeah. Big Bug, hello, welcome to the stream. It's good to have you here. Do you have any advice for starting out or out doing readings? That's a good question. Starting out, I would just say, like, kind of do your research on what kind of microphone works well. Like for me, I use an H4n, which I've used literally since the beginning of my YouTube channel. Finding good settings, finding things to make things sound better through my editing software, which I use Sony Vegas 14. Not that that really matters. They're all relatively the same. But yeah, and depending on what kind of channel you're doing, if you want to, there's a lot of creepypastas that are sort of in the open copyright world, where you can use those without any issues as long as you credit the authors and stuff like that. But there's different subreddits, like mine is the R Let's Read Official, where people submit things. You feel free to utilize those. I kind of just have it listed like licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 3.0, so that's fine for you to use, and as long as you credit the authors and all that kind of stuff. And then also, what's his name? Unit 522 has a subreddit called Free Horror Stories, where he has people submit different horror stories there that are able to be used on narrations, if that's something you want to jump into. But obviously, definitely, it's not too hard, actually. I mean, it's in the overall game of narration stuff, it's not too bad. And Scary Mystery, making good thumbnails is definitely important. I had a friend who helps me with some different things. We got a donation here from Norma Jean with $10. Thank you, Norma. And she says, I'm finally able to donate to my fave YouTuber. Thanks for all your live streams. Keeps me sane while I'm banned from working. I love to hear anything you choose. Awesome. Thank you, Norma. Appreciate that. Sorry you got banned from work. I don't know if that's a good or bad thing at times. But I hope you get right back in there. Start making the moolah again. I know that can kind of be scary to be away from work at times. But yeah, last time we were on the stream, I was like anxious because my audio, I felt like was off kilter, and it just like was, I feel like I get into these like sort of like borderline like OCD thought processes where you're like trying to make sure everything's perfect, because I'm trying to entertain like quite a few of you here, and I love having you, and I just want to give you the best I can. And I'm pretty stoked that right now we've got everything in working order here as of now. Norma says, banned because I've been in and out of the hospital, but I'm good, I swear. That's rough. Yeah, that's the one unfortunate thing, is actually in today's video that's coming out around 7 o'clock or whenever the stream is done, I'll be able to release it as soon as the stream is complete, which is cool, and I appreciate you guys being here before that, and hopefully you can check that out. Basically, one of the individuals in that was having some difficulties with work because they've had younger children who had some health issues that kept them away from work, and then they ended up getting demoted and then having to, essentially get more jobs elsewhere to fill those hours. And that's such an unfortunate aspect of life, as health problems come and they go, and sometimes employers don't have the sort of patience, I guess, or like the sort of heart to allow people the time to deal with that. And I apologize that you have to go through that. Daydreamer, hi Daydreamer. It's been a while since I've seen you here. Or I guess I don't stream super often, but with the $20, True Home Alone story, please. Love when you stream. Nice, awesome. You also get to hear a Home Alone story today. It's actually one of the first stories on the list of today's stories. We've got 10 stories, and we're actually up over an hour in audio, so that's pretty awesome. Pretty stoked about that. Alfonso had donated earlier. Didn't specifically request a story, but figured give him something good here. It was the night when me and my boyfriend saw those things that are flying and follow us. We were both freshmen in a prestigious university in the Philippines, and we just went out from the computer studies building when we saw two horizontal lines of light flying above us, specifically above the engineering building of our university. One line was a bit smaller than the other. For you to visualize what we saw, it was like two beams of white light that go up and down alternatively. At first, we thought that someone was just playing with a powerful and bright flashlight on the rooftops of the engineering buildings, so we just brushed it off. But as we walked past the engineering buildings, those things were still following us and positioned themselves right above us in the night sky. As a somewhat believer of the supernatural, I got a little excited due to those things that are following us. I keep on asking my boyfriend, am I starting to be crazy? Am I the only one who's seeing this? Like, WTF? Not to mention, even if it was nighttime, there were still many people around us, and it was 7 p.m. The university will close at 10 p.m., so there are still many buildings that are open during this time of night. In front of the engineering and the computer studies building, there's a huge field, so me and my boyfriend decided to cross the field to clearly see if those things are still following us. And yes, they were, moving in an up and down motion. After a few minutes of walking, we decided to stop and check if those things above us would stop too. They did. Not completely, since they're still moving in an up and down motion, but they won't move forward while we're also not moving forward. My boyfriend backed away, and those things backed away too. To be honest, I was pretty amazed at that time. Fast forward to when I got home, I messaged my boyfriend about these things. I asked him if I'm the only one affected from what we saw earlier, and he answered, I didn't really think of it much since I also experienced that when I was 10 years old. My mind goes blank. I ask him, was it the same as what we saw earlier? He responded, not entirely, because when he was just a child, he only saw one hovering above the sky in a circular motion, and that the size was a little bit smaller. Again, my mind goes blank. I said to him, earlier we saw two lights. One was a smaller size while the other was a medium size. Maybe it was reflecting our heights. You know that I'm a bit smaller than you while you're a lot taller than me, and the one you experienced as a child was also reflecting your height. He replied, stop it. You're scaring me a little bit. Can anyone tell me that they have also experienced this kind of thing? I'm still quite scared right now, and it just happened yesterday. Yeet, yeet, yeet. These things were yeeting on them. Emily, Weon, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I recognize you from previous streams, commenting on Twitter, and also Patreon, so it's good to see you again, Emily. Thank you for making my day with a live stream. Absolutely. Thank you for being so generous with being here at the stream. And Wyan. Okay, so I'm gonna go with Wyan. Weon. Get you a story here as well. Thank you, Afonso, for your request. Sons of John had requested a creepy woodland story. I'm going to have to do a little bit of digging here to see what we could find. All right. Before I get into the story, I want to mention that I'm usually a fiction writer. I've been writing fiction for about 10 years since I was only 7 or 8 years old, almost 18 now. This memory kind of just popped into my brain randomly a few days ago, and I'm shocked that I've never written anything about it before. It's probably scarier than most of my fiction stories, and while I was thinking of adding a bit of fiction to it to upload to No Sleep, I thought that honestly it'd probably be scarier if I just told the real story here, as it's a story, but sweet story about the dangers of letting your children roam freely outside at a very young age. This story takes place in 2008. I was 7 years old and I lived in Beaverton, Oregon. It's a pretty nice wooded area with constantly rainy weather that boasts a population of nearly 100,000 people. While it's a nice place to live and all, the crime rates were pretty high. Almost every couple of nights, an apartment next to us would get burglarized. Local stores also were held up quite a bit. I went to a nearby school that wasn't funded very well, as in the play equipment was worn down and the building itself was falling apart. The kids that went were mostly kids that came from lower-income families. The school was built right next to a large wooded area. The woods probably covered a full acre of land. Now, as a second grader, I absolutely loved to sneak off during recess when the teachers weren't looking and go and explore this wooded area with my friends. I had 3 friends named Parker, Aaron, and Brian. All 3 consented to let me share their actual names. They would also almost always accompany me on these quick 15-minute adventures through the woods. The cool thing was that me and those 3 friends lived really close to one another, and we also lived only a block away from the school. So we found ourselves almost every day hanging out after school in this wooded area. We'd usually bring out a bunch of snacks, find a comfortable place to sit, and play Mario Party DS until the sun started going down, or until our console's batteries were low. On the last day of second grade, me and my friends decided we were going to walk through the entire wooded area until we reached the other side. Again, it was an acre of land, which isn't that much for a bunch of 7-year-olds. None of us had ever made it to the other side before. Usually we'd stop 10 trees in. Keep in mind the trees in that area were absolutely huge, before then returning home a few hours later. When the bell rang and school was out of session for the summer, the 4 of us ran home pretty quickly and alerted our parents of our plans before then making our way to where we usually met up near the entrance of the wooded area. The walk was very super uneventful and we found ourselves bored and rather unsettled by the silent nature of the woods. I should mention that to the right of the woods there was a large road that went straight for miles. If you were to drive down it for a mile, it led to a very sketchy neighborhood that was notorious for its high crime rate. Quite a bit of Amber Alerts were issued in that part of town as well. Our parents also told us to avoid this part of town and to not go any further than the end of the woods. We made it to the end of the woods eventually, after several Mario Party sessions, of course, and instead of being happy about it, we were actually quite creeped out. The sun was setting a little earlier than we had thought, and it would take another 40 minutes to make it back to where we had started this journey. We decided we'd walk along the road I mentioned earlier as it was getting pretty dark, which was really odd as it was only about 6:20, and walking through an unkempt wooded area at this time of night would be really unsettling. Panic started to set in when, 20 minutes later, Aaron's phone, which I believe was a Motorola Razr, this is important because he was the only kid in our group that had a phone, had died, and the sun had almost set entirely. It looked more like it was 9 o'clock instead of 6:40. My parents had told me that to be back by 6:30 as well, and with me having anywhere from 20 to 30 minutes until I was home, I was a bit anxious about how my parents would react to me being late like that. I was also nervous because I had never been in this area when it was dark. We usually made it home right when the sun started to set, so it was always at least somewhat light outside, but it was nearly pitch black out, and I knew for sure my mom and dad were worrying about my whereabouts. The entire walk, not a single car had driven by us. However, about 10 minutes from the school, a very beat-up-looking Ford Escort, I believe it was an early 2000s Ford Escort station wagon, slowly drives ahead of us. It was too dark to see anybody inside. It drives ahead of us about 20 feet, before then slowing down and pulling to the side. Right when this happened, the 4 of us stopped in our tracks and watched the now fully stopped car anxiously. My gut instinct at this point was telling me that something was very wrong with this picture. A man then got out of the car from the passenger side door and started talking to somebody that was in the driver's seat before looking at the 4 of us every couple of seconds. We were frozen and hadn't said a single word since the car had pulled in front of us. The man on the passenger side of the car was a burly tall man of probably 6'4" and 250 pounds. A couple of seconds later, we saw the man reach into the car and pull something out before he then started at us as fast as he could. We all screamed louder than we probably had ever in our lives and ran immediately into the neighboring woods, sticking together the entire time. As we ambushed our way into the woods, we heard a man screaming angrily before then hearing the car from earlier slam on its gas before it then faded out into the distance. We hauled ass home at that point and told our parents about the incident. The local police department was alerted about the situation. However, nobody was ever caught. Nothing came from the situation afterwards. My parents became strict after that night and didn't let me walk around outside without parental supervision until I was probably 11 or 12. Regardless of their decision to not let me wander around outside alone, I wouldn't have to go back to that wooded area anyway. In fact, after that night, me and my friends played video games at my house only until I moved in 2012. Thinking about this incident today, it's pretty scary to think about what would have happened had we have not thought quickly to make our way into the woods to hide. The man chasing us could have easily picked all four of us up at once and could have easily stuffed us inside of his car. Yikes. I never had any, childhood, scary experiences like that, I suppose. I definitely got in trouble for going through certain areas by old men, but never in the fashion of trying to catch me. Yolanda Sanchez had donated during that story with the $5. Says, I love your channel, Let's Read. Is YouTube your full-time job or a side thing? Also, thanks for the consistent uploads. So YouTube is technically my full-time gig as of right now, and I kind of, I do that full-time, and then on the side, I guess you could say, but initially was my full-time job, was nursing. So I went to school for nursing and started YouTube as something sort of creative to do on the side, and then it just slowly took off, and you guys helped me get to where I am now, that this has become my full-time job, and I really, really appreciate that. Thank you for the 5, by the way. Owen Helmkamp with the $10 says, creepy cult story. All right, you bet. So, Owen with the creepy cult. The Buttersock cult. The Buttersock cult is, I feel like, a meme that I have not appropriately followed up with here. I need to turn that into a decent emote for the people who are members, the two of them. There's only like 2 members. But I definitely have some Buttersock Cult merchandise on Spreadshirt.com. You can find that in the description. But thank you, Owen. Appreciate that. And then 4 Warnings with the $20 says, what's up, Let's Read? Not sure how readily available these are, but I really dig the Glitch in the Matrix stories. Haven't seen too many around, but I can't be the only one who feels like Neo's second cousin all the time. Take care. Thank you, 4 Warnings. Appreciate that. Yeah, we can definitely do a Glitch in the Matrix. Those are some of my favorite too, because you never really know what kind of story types you're really going to get there. So Norma had requested a anything type story, so that's perfect. Because I like reading anything. So my friend's new house. So you're looking, so Rose says she's looking to go into nursing. Any advice? I would just say try to get into a bachelor's program, just because they're usually, it's still difficult. It's still very difficult, because it's going to challenge, your studying habits and your dedication and time management and just general overall ability or whatever, academically. But usually the demand, at least in my bachelor program, wasn't as stringent as the associate's program, because a lot of people were fighting to get into the associate's program, whereas I was from the get-go as a freshman was set on the 4-year course of just already in the bachelor's degree, and all I had to do was meet certain requirements along the way, and I maintained that, whereas some people really had to they had to get really high A's in all these really specific classes to get into the associate's program, which then kind of stinks because you get in and sure you start making money and stuff, but nursing in general, I believe, is slowly moving everybody towards requiring bachelor's degrees anyways. By like 2020 is like the initiative, not like it's ever going to follow through, because like baby boomers and the various others before them like don't give a crap about that. Like they're just, they might be still practicing and doing just as good a job with a diploma. So I would just say get into the bachelor's just to enable yourself to branch out as far as you can and potentially have a better programming experience. So school's stupid, but it is what it is. So this all started about a year ago. I'm going to try to remember all the details as well as I can, and I promise I'm not exaggerating on any of this. So I live in a small town somewhat connected to 2 other smaller towns. I was in my last year of high school, and I had a friend who graduated a year prior. She moved in and went to one of the neighboring towns and found a small mobile home that was in her budget. It was just a humble little 2-bedroom trailer, but it served as a good hosting place for small parties, drinking, and all the like. So after her first week of living there, we met for coffee, and I asked her how she liked it. She proceeded to tell me that the first night she was laying down about to fall asleep when her bed started vibrating. She thought it may have just been the plumbing, so she tried to fall asleep. The vibrating grew stronger until it was literally shaking her bed. She was so tired at that point that she chose just to lay there until it stopped, which it eventually did. She told me that she had spent the next night sleeping on her couch as she felt a strong sense that she was unwelcome in that bedroom. She was even woken up periodically to the couch shaking. About a month later, a couple of friends and I were spending the night there, but we chose to abstain from alcohol on this particular occasion. The entire day went fine, and it eventually grew dark outside. At about 1 o'clock in the morning, our two other friends moved into the guest room. The friends who lived there, I'll call her Jessica, would be sleeping on the couch with me. It was a large couch that was wrapped around a corner of the room. We sat there for about 20 minutes longer just watching TV. I was especially vigilant in sensing a shaking which never occurred, but as soon as we had turned out the lights and laid down to go to sleep, sure enough the couch began to vibrate. My friend laughed as she sensed my excitement. It grew into a vigorous shake as she had told her past stories, and then it stopped. We heard the bed in her bedroom rocking back and forth, but it was just the bed. We did not hear any of the other furniture in the house moving, as it was a vent issue. Then the rocking stopped, and a minute later the cabinet next to my head began to rattle. All these incidences were isolated, as none of them overlapped, and there was a couple of seconds interval between the object's movement. The couch then gave a loud thud as we felt it lurch forward and slam on the ground. Then all was quiet. The next morning we tried to explain to others what happened. I'm not sure if they believed us, but I didn't care because I was still not quite sure what had occurred. As the weeks passed, Jessica told us stories of coming home and finding a black cat sitting in her living room, as well as having her sisters, or even bigger spiritualists than she was, telling her that the side of her house where her bedroom was located was filled with very strong negative energy. She also heard footsteps in her hallway and had to turn off her motion sensor light in there because it kept turning on at night. She moved out about a month later, and a part of me wishes we had investigated further, as I'm very big on ghosts, but I have not encountered very many in my life. So what do you guys think? I honestly don't know if I just let my imagination get the better of me, or if this story actually had any merit, let alone if anybody else found it spooky. Thanks for reading, and I hope someone can offer any input. Yeah, you like my... You like my voice crack, yeah. It just means I gotta do some gargling. Yeah, there's so many times whenever I'm recording where my voice cracks and it just like completely ruins the sort of getting pulled into the story, the immersion, and I'm like, well, time to go back a little bit and try her again. That was a bong, not quite. I can make a bong noise though, but it's not an actual bong, but I can make like the water sound with my actual mouth. Watch this. And I drank the bong water. JK. But, alright. Norma, thank you so much for your donation. We're heading on to Daydreamer here, requesting to hear something about someone who was home alone. Yeah, I start coughing. I would if I ripped anything at all. My lungs are not built for the smoking lifestyle. So this one's a little bit shorter, Daydreamer, but I'll probably read this one and then try to read you an additional one. But this one seems to fit within what you were asking for, so thanks again. I was maybe around 13 to 14 years old at the time, and I was recently granted the privilege of staying home alone. Every now and then when I was home alone, I'd hear sounds coming from upstairs, and so I would instinctively call my mom. She then told me a story of how she used to hear things in her old house at the time, and how it's just the house settling in. Fast forward to many instances of sounds later, I decided that the very next time I was going to be home alone, I was going to be completely silent and make as little noise as possible. Within the first half an hour, there was nothing. Not a peep out of the entire house. I eventually got bored and felt safe, so I went to go grab the TV remote to watch some TV, but a few seconds before I grabbed the remote, I heard a huge crash upstairs and running footsteps. I was sure more than ever that someone was in the house. By now, there were plenty of consistent sounds coming from upstairs that was, in fact, someone upstairs. 14-year-old me decided to hatch a quick plan. Being the skinny, most non-threatening little girl I was, I first grabbed a kitchen knife. Then I grabbed a shoe and propped open the front door, and after a few moments of some deep breaths, I yelled out in the deepest voice I could, "I know you're upstairs. I'm giving you one chance to leave without me calling the police, but I have propped the front door open and I will be in the bathroom. Be aware that I'm holding a knife, and if you refuse to leave, I'll call the police." Sure enough, I walk into the bathroom with my knife, absolutely scared to death that someone will open the door. I wait and I wait until that one sound that to this day will always scare me for this reason. I heard the front door close and the shoe was moved. I quickly locked the door and turned on the alarm system. I hope to never see this person, or even hear this person, again. Hans got to go to sleep. Good nighty-night there, my friend. You always inspect the house before you go to bed with a fork. That's a good idea. Anybody comes out at you, you can just... If I had a fork, I would just end up wanting to eat them or something. I don't know. So this started in April of this year and is somewhat still going on. My husband and I bought a cabin on 7 acres of land. It's part woods, but the majority of it is open fields that's partially fenced. There is a tree line that separates one side of my land from a neighboring farm. That tree line is a nice view out to my kitchen window and is quite pretty, but it now terrifies me. Around the end of April, I am walking my land, just exploring as we had just moved in. I happen to glance up and I see an unoccupied tree stand. I didn't think much of it since we lived in the country and the land is full of deer and turkey. It was not hunting season, but people still like to watch the wildlife. The only off thing about it was that it faced my house. I went on with my day not thinking about it. About 2 days later, I'm putting in my driveway and happen to look across my field and see the damn tree stand in a freaking different tree and still facing my house. It creeped me out, but I didn't feel threatened because there's about 1.5 acres between my house and the tree stand. I had never seen a person in the stand, and my husband told me it's probably someone deer or bird watching, which made me feel better. The tree stand ended up moving from tree to tree so much that it became a game between my daughter and I to play Find the Tree Stand until late June. It was almost dark outside when I took our puppy out to potty. As he is doing his business, I mosey on over toward the tree line, not even thinking about the tree stand. I tend to wander around our property just enjoying the peacefulness and animal noise. I am not good with determining distance, but I guess I was about 25 feet from the tree line when I see him. A man with what looked like either a camera or binoculars around his neck. I couldn't make out many details because it was almost dark. I truly don't believe he knew that I saw him because I didn't react to him. I was walking diagonally toward the tree line and could see him out of my peripheral vision. I pretend like I don't see him and mosey my way back toward my house when I hear a creak of the tree stand and him scurrying down the damn tree. He had to make it down the stand, which gave me a head start, but he frantically made his way out of the tree. I looked back one time and saw him at the edge of a cattle fence looking at me. My husband searched the property line for him, but didn't find him. My daughter no longer stays home alone, and I carry my pistol every time I go outside. I hate having to carry a weapon on my own property. I feel as though I am being watched, and it's not a good feeling. We still see the tree stand, and it has moved from tree to tree. Sometimes we can't spot it at all, which creeps me out even more. Hey, Southern Cannibal's here. What's up, Southern Cannibal? How art thou? If you guys are not subscribed to Southern Cannibal, I highly suggest you do it, because he does long videos a lot like me, and currently going through some changes on it. Well, I don't know if he's going through changes on the channel, but going through some issues with YouTube. YouTube has been insane lately, so honestly, he can use all the support he can get. If you guys enjoy his stuff, he doesn't do ads on his videos as of currently, so be sure to support him on Patreon and all that kind of stuff, because he's, even through these troubled times, he's still sticking strong to putting out content for you guys, because he really does have a passion for the game. So, yeah, guys, go check out Southern there. He's awesome. Thank you, Daydreamer, for your request. And up next, I wanted to read a story for our good friend Emily here, who is a patron of me. Garrett Wiseman with the $10 says, "Hey, let's read. Listening every night to go to sleep, and when I'm building my Halloween props, can you read a demon story? Starts with Uncle Demonic, or I sent some stories. 3 were about my mom." Okay, yeah, definitely. Garrett, was that... Can you remind me if those stories were on the subreddit, or if they were potentially sent through email? Uncle Demonic. Eric Lane with the $2 says, "I need a girlfriend still." Guys, what are we doing here? I told you. Eric is the man with the plan. You're wondering, you say, oh, that's just $2. But Eric has donated $2 like, I want to say close to 1,000 times so far. Can you imagine if he's spending that much on little old Let's Read, how much he would shower you in love and affection on a first date? Steak dinner. Lobster. Delicious desserts. That guy won't care. And most likely he would massage your feet. I mean, I'm sorry, I don't mean to speak for you, Lane, but I'm just going to throw that out there, guys. One day with Eric gets a free foot massage and steak and lobster dinner. You know where to find him. I had some weird things happen to me when I was younger. I'm 19 now, but I still think about these strange things that happened. They are short happenings and each only happened once, but they stuck with me. I think I was around 10 or 11 when this first one happened. I had woken up one night out of a dead sleep with the feeling that someone or something was watching me. I looked into my doorway since I used to sleep with the door open, and I saw a black silhouette around 7 feet tall with red glowing eyes. It didn't move and was just standing there looking at me. A few months later, I was sleeping in the basement of the house because that's where the TV I used to watch movies was. I had woken up and was laying there and saw a man standing in front of me in a gray Civil War uniform. I didn't see the faces because I was too scared to move, but again, it just stood there. I didn't feel any hostility coming from him, so I just went back to sleep. Before we moved from that house, I would always see figures out of the corner of my eyes just disappearing around the corner at night as he turned to look at them. After we had moved, I didn't experience anything for a few years until the whispering started. My family had always lived in the country, so I had always contributed the strange happenings to that. The whisperings started around the time where I had started to realize how stressful life can be. I would have been around the age of 14 at this time. I couldn't make out what any of the voices were saying, but they were pretty creepy. But I mean, how would you feel about hearing whispering behind you while you were trying to sleep? We moved out of that house a few years later to a different town. The last time I had experienced anything was last year. It was right before my birthday around the month of August, early in the month. 2 of my friends and I were just driving around to different graveyards to see if we could find any ghosts or spirits, whatever you want to call them. Very dumb of us, I know, but we all have always been interested in the paranormal and wanted to see something. I ended up in a graveyard in the next town over where one of my friends used to live. I'll call them A and B. We walked around for a minute with all of us feeling very uneasy and had the feeling that something didn't want us to be there. We had stopped by a big tree to talk about what was going on when A got tapped on the shoulder and he took off running and didn't tell us about it until we got into the car. So we decided to go get a drink. We went to go pay and A realized his wallet had fallen out of his pocket in the graveyard when he took off running. So B and I decided we would go back in and get it from him. As we were walking around, we got back up by the tree, but we couldn't find it. All of a sudden, we heard someone running up on us really fast from behind. B turned around, but no one was there. We left before something bad had happened, but we didn't get the wallet. A had to go back the next day to get it. I'm sorry that this is kind of all over the place, not a well-structured story, but I needed to get it out there. Chartreuse Letieu with the $10 says, "Hi buddy, I'm from Canada, yay, humor me with any story. Are you an RN at a hospital?" I am an RN at a hospital, yeah. I'm not looking forward to going back this weekend because, so I'm working this coming weekend and we got a new charting system, and you can imagine anytime you get a new computer system, you gotta learn everything over again, and I am unfortunately not there often enough to really just have it picked up, So thank you so much for the 10. That was very nice of you. Chartreuse. It's a cool name. And True Alpaca God with the $2 says, "I'm 19 tomorrow. I love your channel." Well, Alpaca God, happy birthday. I hope you have a good 19th. Savor the fun and enjoy your time. Owen had requested a cult story. We'll see if this one is, even my talking voice is soothing. What the frick? Thanks, Jay. Appreciate that. Unfurled Adam says, can you do a dark web story? I have not heard one in ages. I honestly have no idea where I would find a dark web story if I did do one. I know people really enjoy those, but as of right now, we are pretty low on the dark web deal. Dealios there. I don't think a lot of people. I don't even really think a lot of people write those anymore. I'm not sure, or even get on the dark web. Eric Lane with the $5 says, all I want is a kiss from a beautiful girl. Oh. Well, I unfortunately am not that. But right now I know that there are hundreds of beautiful girls hanging out / lurking in the comments section in the chat here who probably want a kiss from a beautiful man who will buy them a steak dinner. Esme D knows what's going on. You know what to do, guys. You know where to find him. Just one kiss to turn him from the frog to a prince. That's all it takes. I met my contact at the Stony Plain Golf Course off of Fairway Drive. It was roughly just past 10 and the sun had vanished for the night. I waited in my car after lighting a cigarette. I saw an older model of a domestic car pull up a few cars away. Before I could roll down the window, my contact stepped out and was roughly a few feet away. Slowly, I opened the door and stepped out. The air was tense, and I felt that at any moment I was going to be either running for my life or become a banquet for the bugs, though that never came to bother me as we began to speak. He went by no name. He told me before we started that I was not going to release any of his information, and with that agreement we started talking. He went on and described in full detail the actions of digging up graves, though he never went into detail if they were fresh or old. Many times you'd hear stories of people digging up the recently deceased for fresh skulls. The fresher the skull, the more powerful the spell will become, or in this case, opening a portal to that of hell. The information I was getting was that they had started out as a few friends who were bored one night that grew towards killing small animals and blood drinking. Soon their numbers grew with teenage outcasts. A weird power came over them and soon they turned towards people. Though I was told that they never crossed that line of murdering an innocent soul, we know that day will soon arrive, as it often always does. My contact has always felt that the group had taken a turn towards more ghoulish aspects on the spectrum. I know the very thought of this group crossing the line by means of already drinking the blood of animals would make anyone reading this believe that they have already crossed the line long ago. Now before you ask, what about the police? Why aren't they getting involved? And these are both very well questions. I've asked this before, and the only explanation I was given was that some members of the force and those in the surrounding area are already members. That's why the cult never gets busted. Not even a single mention in the mainstream media. Before many years ago, there was a group of teens in Camrose who put a cat in a microwave and did other acts of occult activities. These practices do happen. They happen more than what you'd like to think. You can take what I say with a grain of salt if you'd wish, but I would like to say that the world and humanity are messed up elements. Good on their own, but put together, insanity happens. Our talk was cut short, as a high influx of traffic began to make my contact feel as if though he was on the brink of being caught. He promised that he would speak again and that he'd return with a list of names of the others who have influence in government. But with that being said, I want to assure you, the readers, that I will not let this story die. Has anyone else discovered a satanic cult in their towns or cities? Yikes. Has anyone here experienced any sort of, satanic cults or anything like that? We gotta get to the bottom of it. You understand? Gotta figure out what's going on. They keep killing all the guinea pigs, bleeding them out. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes, they step in to areas that might cross the lines. See, they might kill a dog or a kitty cat. And let me tell you, I got a few of those. I ain't risking it. You know what I mean? I got a family to feed. I ain't trying to get my cat's throat slit. You know what I'm saying? For the satanic cult. So let me know if you got any leads. The Buttersock cult does not kill any innocent animals, guys. We strictly stick to the more reasonable, reasonable practices of sticking butter in our socks prior to listening to me read spooky stories on live stream. I don't think that's weird or anything like that. Eric with the $2 again. It sucks having a voice mix of Mike Tyson and MJ. Mike Tyson, MJ. Hey guys, this is Mike Tyson and MJ mixed together. But that's a soft, sweet voice, though. You know what I mean? Like that. Most girls would probably love that voice. I feel like you get pulled into it and stuff, and we whisper this into your ear. It's kind of like ASMR. So if you don't want to date me, if you don't want like a steak dinner or nothing, that's fine. I just, I love to kiss you though. You know what I mean? Guys, let's get Eric. Honestly, a peck on the cheek is all that's required at this point for this man to go from confidence level 1 to freaking pickup artist, the host of the next season of Pickup Artist. Easy peasy. Peck on the cheek. Let's Kino escalate Eric all the way to the top. Ashley Todd with the $5 says, no request, I just really love your channel. Thank you, Ashley. I appreciate that. Owen, I hope you enjoyed that cult story. We have 4 warnings had requested a glitch in the Matrix. Eric, I really need to know how many, after every stream where I'm pumping you up, I'm your hype man, like how many DMs do you just burn through a day? Because I'm going to guess close to probably 50 to 100 are just flooding in. And I know you're a selective guy. I'm trying to get you the good ones here. The ones that are going to treat you right. They're going to love you, not going to run out on you. I've been reading through a lot of different Glitch in the Matrix stories. I had never experienced anything like ghosts or even a glitch. That is, until I saw my friend in another dimension. My best friend Sam has always told me about how she would have experienced strange experiences in her room. She would wake up, always at 3 a.m., and see a figure in the corner of her room. She could never remember if it was just sleep paralysis or not, but I felt like that was likely. One night, I spent the night at her house. It was 2 a.m., I was falling asleep on one side of the bed, and she was awake on the other side. She was softly playing some music while she played on her phone. I remember I was sleeping on my side facing the wall, and I could hear the music as I was slowly falling asleep. An hour had passed, and I was almost fully asleep, but I could still hear the music subconsciously. I don't know what prompted me to flip over and look in the corner of the room, but I did. I was still half asleep, but what I saw woke me right up. In the corner of the room, I saw a tall, dark figure. I blinked a couple of times to make sure it wasn't a trick of the eye and that it was still there. It was moving, like it was trying to turn off the fan. What's crazy is that I wasn't scared at all. For some reason, I thought it was Sam. I was staring at this figure for probably 5 whole seconds thinking it was her until I saw the real Slam flip over next to me and start playing on her phone again. I was stunned. Immediately I said to her, "Sam, I don't want to freak you out, but I just saw a figure in the corner of the room." Sam ran and turned on the lights and got her dog to come in her room to comfort us. Well, mostly comfort Sam. She's seen this a lot, but this is the first time someone else has seen the figure too. I told her what happened in detail, especially how I thought it was her up and messing with the fan. And this is the part that makes both of us believe it might not have been just a ghost. Sam told me that about 15 minutes before I saw the figure, she had an overwhelming urge to stand up and walk around her room and even turn the fan off. But she didn't and stayed in bed. This is me just making up theories about this because I have no explanation for this happening, But what if I saw a glimpse of Sam in a parallel universe? I don't really know. If you all have any theories or anything, please let me know. Eric with the $2 says absolutely zero, my friend. Guys, Eric, I honestly think the reasoning being is because we are not getting your Instagram handle out there to the people. Where can the ladies honestly reach you? Because we need to get that promotion up. This is in life. You know why we bought Beats headphones? You know why we purchase Adidas lifting shoes? The advertisements. They dig deep into our subconscious, and that's what we're going to do right now. What is that handle, Eric? The ladies want to know. Legate Vasanis. I'm not good at pronouncing that. With the $10 says, please, please, please do any story in your best imitation of Lazy Masquerade. Oh my gosh. I actually might be able to do that because he's like one of my favorite narrators on the platform, and I find myself doing his voice just in my free time, not really, not even realizing it. Eric is on Facebook. Okay. Eric Lane. He's got his own street named after him, Eric Lane, and he's on Facebook. He's in Louisiana. Where's my Louisiana babes at? Unfortunately, I'm not too close to you, Eric, so I won't be able to be much help as far as going out into the, the b-boy scene and all that kind of stuff. Because that's what I usually do. Is when I go out, I like to break dance. I like to kind of, show them my moves first before I go in for the Kino escalation. And, usually I wear like a big pair of furry dice around my neck with some goggles, potentially like a pink camo hat that they can potentially wear. That's a big no-no if you take my hat and put it on your head. That's kind of like my deal breaker right there. But also my big deal breaker is the use of straws, because I kind of really like turtles and stuff, you know what I mean? So, all right, Garrett, my good friend Garrett here had donated, and he had requested a story related to that started off with Uncle Demonic. Let's see, maybe I can, and I presume that would be in my subreddit here. If I do a little hyper search. Garrett, if you are still there, is there a potential that maybe to more efficiently achieve this story, or get to it rather, maybe you could email it to the Let's Read submissions@gmail.com. I'm going to type that into the chat. Also for anybody else who would like to send in a story there. So that's just, Let's Read submissions. Not like, jujitsu or anything like that, but yeah. Do I see Eric here posting up? Yeah. Where am I from? I am from the northeast of the United States. So it is hot AF right now, but it also gets cold AF as well. Here's probably relatively soon. It's funny, nobody warns you about September heat or October heat, but the struggle is real, especially in my room as I gotta keep the AC off. I wish I had central air. That would be lovely. Jay does anything. What should I post? I can do ASMR, though not very good. Narrate like Joel, or when my neighbors aren't home, I can cover metal songs. That's a good question. ASMR is the easiest to break into, just because, you could sit in front of a camera and chew on cud. People would be into that. Or you could just sit there with like a pair of scissors and snip around the mic or something and say that you're role-playing Edward Scissorhands or something. Eric Lane says, I need to bleach my skin. It sucks being black. That is not true, my friend. No need to do that. You don't want to end up like actual Michael in that scenario. Be proud of who you are, and in all reality, I think I think honestly every ethnicity in my book is attractive, but I would never allow myself to think the thoughts that something about my ethnicity or skin color or whatever is somehow unattractive to other people. It really comes down to, at the end of the day, confidence. You just got to go in there knowing that you is the shit, and you're gonna get it done. All right, so if Garrett is still here, if you want to at me during this next reading or something like that to let me know that maybe you emailed the story, or where I can find it on the subreddit under R New. You can sort by like new posts and stuff like that. I am not too certain exactly where to find this story here, so we're gonna jump ahead here a little bit to Chartreuse Says Any Story, which that certainly is definitely possible. I'm female. Just a bit of backstory. When I was a kid, I was extremely shy and would cry if yelled at by any adult. There were a lot of social anxiety problems which I have thankfully overcome for the most part. And when I was about 9, which is the age that the story takes place, I weighed a little more than the other kids around my age. In fact, I was the biggest in my class, even though I wasn't obese. A little overweight, sure, but not obese. I played outside with neighbor kids, but my dietary habits prevented me from losing that weight, and I suppose the leftover baby fat was being stubborn. Because of this, my stamina left something to be desired. This is important for my story. My childhood home that I still live in is situated on a cul-de-sac. At the end of the cul-de-sac is a brief sidewalk that goes on and curves for about 20 yards until it connects to a bike and walking path. It's a whole loop that is 3.1 miles all the way around. Where the path connects is a T-junction. This particular piece of info is important, I just figured I'd share it. One summer day, my cousin, who we'll call Ashley, would have been 11 and was hanging out with me for the day. Ashley is a cousin I was extremely close to, and still pretty close to this day, and I looked up to her a lot. She always took the lead, and I willingly followed. On this day, her and I went biking around the 3-mile loop. This was awesome, but being how out of shape I was, we would have to take a break at least once. Well, there are 2 parks that are inside this loop. One is what my younger brother and I creatively coined the left park. That is simply the park that is about 7 minutes walk to the left of the T-junction. If we go to the right instead of the left, the right park is much further from us than the left park. They're too far apart from each other. Maybe 20 minutes. Ashley and I are biking and we're headed to the left instead of the right. This is probably a good thing. We make it past the right park and are continuing along, having fun but not making trouble. At this point, I haven't even had a break yet and was already tired and winded. But having fun nonetheless. A little ways past the right park, it had been about 3 minutes away by walking distance. Ashley and I are at a part of the path where this biking path is parallel to a sidewalk, which is parallel to the road. The further you go, the more foliage there is between the bike trail and the sidewalk, so cars on the road can see anyone on the sidewalk but won't see anyone on the trail. There is a point where the sidewalk and trail connect, but there is a lot of trees and brush, so it can be hard to see, believe it or not. We're coming up to that point when I see a man on a bike, and he stops and watched us come up. He had who I presume to be his young two daughters, maybe 3 and 4 years old. There was a baby in the seat that connected to his bike seat. Do you know what I'm referring to? I don't know how else to describe those things. Ashley and I automatically sped up so that we can pass this guy so that he doesn't have to wait for us as long, something a lot of people do. I guess he didn't take it into consideration. He started screaming at us. This man was Hispanic and was screaming in a heavily accented Spanish accent. I didn't know Spanish, and I still don't know it. This encounter is not the reason why I haven't learned the language. Ashley and I got scared, obviously, and I started speeding up and biking away. He starts following us, and thankfully not very fast, and keeps screaming at us. At this point, though, I get tired. Very tired. The adrenaline did not last long, and this actually scared me even more. I'm running away from someone, and I'm having trouble keeping my legs moving, and I'm out of breath. This doesn't happen in the movies. Why is this happening to me? That's the gist of my thoughts were like. I told Ashley, I'm getting tired. I could hear the fear and sadness in my voice even at that age. She only said, we gotta keep moving, come on. I mean, what more could she say? Thankfully, about 25 yards up ahead was a big blown-up map, and Ashley and I spotted an older couple that was standing there perusing it. Their bikes were right next to them. For whatever reason, just seeing these white-haired folks made us all feel more calmed and protected by them just being there. Could they have defended us against a 40-ish-year-old man? Probably not, but their mere presence really helped calm the two of us down. As we neared them, we looked back and noticed that the man, who had stopped screaming by now, turned around and left. Ashley asked, do you want to stop and stay here by this couple? As we were kind of close, I said no, and we kept going. We were both freaked out by getting followed and screamed at by a strange man. The whole thing only lasted about 2 minutes, 3 tops, but it felt dragged on. My cousin and I determined, after a discussion, as we hurried to my home, that we would tell my mom, but laugh it off and make it seem more like a big deal. Knowing my mom, she may have gone out there to confront him, but most likely not in front of his kids. Anyways, this was so long, and if I left out any important details to this sloppily written, it's because it's 10:30 p.m. where I live and I normally go to bed earlier than this. I just thought I'd share this moment that impacted my life. Again, it's nothing compared to some of the things that I've heard other people have to live through, but this moment did make me more cautious out there. I'm not afraid of being out there, and this moment I shared with you was not the first, and it was not the last time I've been followed or chased. These memories I have are for another time, though. Oh, interesting. Oh yeah, is Garrett... Sorry guys, is Garrett still... I don't know if Garrett bailed or if I... while I'm reading, sometimes I can't really read the chat at the same time, so I apologize. Sometimes I'll glance over in the midst of a thing, but it kind of makes like an awkward pause. Garrett, my man, did you email the story to me? Just because I don't know where to find it in my subreddit, because it's kind of like a convoluted place, and I didn't really follow exactly what you meant by demonic uncle type thing, you know what I mean? So if you want to just like copy paste email that to the Let's Read submissions, that would be super duper, and we can get to reading it. Alright, so Legate, or Legate, or Laga. Oh yeah, I missed Eric's donation from earlier. He had donated 2, and he says, I love the people in this chat. They make me feel warm. That's good. Everybody that's subscribed and stuff are really like positive people. I think it kind of comes down to sort of being part of a community that relates to, individuals who have suffered through different scary experiences. And I think, to a certain extent, I think people want to exist within a positive community that's not necessarily toxic. And I hope I've generated a community that's not super toxic and all that. So, but Eric with another $2 says, I'm 30 years old, 6'1", 153 pounds, Baton Rouge, Louisiana, single. 6'1", 153. Well, he that is an in-shape man right there, so you can, throw him around a little bit, if you know what I'm saying. Just kidding, Eric. Louisiana sounds like a fun place, though. It's probably hotter than a dog's, I don't know, egg sack out there. I'm going to listen to Lazy's voice really quick so I can refreshen what he sounds like. But yeah, Lazy Masquerade's like one of my fave boys on the platform. Maybe we can listen to him together. Okay, Garrett had just emailed that story. Thank you, Garrett. I appreciate it. That makes it easier. All right.
I think my Aunt Zara's story is a good fit here. She had just arrived in small-town Russia. Wasn't fluent in the language, but knew enough to have a somewhat decent conversation.
Okay. I think my... All right. I grew up in New York City up until the age of 14, when my grandma got ill, so me, my mom, my dad, and little brother moved to a rural town in Arkansas where she lives so my dad could take care of her. Being in a rural community compared to the city, I grew up in this small town pretty much felt like culture shock. I wasn't so displeased with it at first, but as time grew, the more bad energy I felt, especially in my grandma's house. I originally shared a bedroom with my little brother, who was 7 at the time, until my dad converted the extra dining room into a room for him. Part of me didn't want to be alone because my room faced towards the front yard with a big window that could be opened by the outside if someone pushed hard enough. My dad insisted he was going to fix it, but with the heartache and constant struggle of taking care of his sick mother, it was probably the last thing on his mind. I would spend most of my time in my room, especially during the day, but whenever it would start to get dark, I'd have this strange gut feeling. I brushed it off as just being paranoid. Within about 3 months of me living there is when something I'll never forget happened. I was in my room. It was probably about 12 a.m. to 2 a.m. I don't exactly remember, but I know it was somewhat late. It was summertime, so my sleeping schedule was pretty bad, so I'd stay up usually talking to my friends or watching YouTube videos. I remember the exact YouTube video I was watching when this happened. Remind you, I was a 14-year-old girl. I was on my phone when I heard very quiet footsteps. There are deers and animals where we live, so I wasn't initially assuming the worst until they got closer to my window. I was hesitant to call to my parents because I didn't want to make any noise, so I began to walk slowly to my door to run to my parents' room. Right when I reached my door handle, I heard 3 knocks on my window, and the voice of a middle-aged man saying, "It's your friend Tony, let me in a projecting voice. At this point, I was so scared I started crying, and woke up my parents telling them what happened. My dad grabbed the shotgun in my grandma's basement and ran outside while my mom called the police and brought my little brother into room with us. I was pretty much shaking and crying, which caused my brother to get scared and start crying too. My dad came inside, saying he couldn't see him. Then we heard running on the side of the house where my parents' room is, and saw a glance of a man in what appeared to be a monkey mask sprinting past the window. My dad ran outside but couldn't see anyone. Mind you, where I live, there were no street lights. If you went out at night, it was basically pitch black. Within about 10 minutes, the police showed up and asked us questions. All we knew was it was a middle-aged man with a low voice, wearing what we think was a monkey mask, who claimed his name was Tony. They searched for a good while, but in the end, were never able to find him. I'm not sure how long Tony was watching me through the window, and to know he could have opened if he tried still makes me sick to my stomach. After that, my parents got the window fixed and let me sleep in their room when I needed to until I felt safe. My grandma sadly passed away within 1 year of being there, so we moved back to New York. I hope whoever that man was isn't creeping around girls' windows anymore, and hopefully has found his way to jail. All right, what do you think? Was that like totally terrible, or was that actually pretty decent? It felt like it was pretty good. Jay Does Anything. Can you recommend me a story to narrate? You could read that one. The Creepy Window Knocker. Eric with the $2 says, I love anime, a gamer on PS4, love horror, and he has brown eyes. Ladies, to me, brown-eyed men are an underrated gem in the mine of dudes. If there's a mine you go to that you mine out dudes, brown-eyed men are kind of like that diamond in the rough that's been sitting for potentially thousands of years, just slowly purifying itself into a beauty unbefelled by any woman before. But the second you make eye contact with them, it's love at first sight. You know what to do, guys. Forget Facebook. One of you girls are probably most likely going to drive to Louisiana, kick Eric's door down, sweep him off his 153-pound feet, take him right to the nearest wedding chapel. Come on. Come on, can I get an amen? But thank you, Eric, for the donations. I appreciate it. Who doesn't love brown eyes? It's like staring into the soul of chocolate. Chocolate! Lazy Masquerade. All right, Garrett, awesome. Okay, sweet. All right, we are going. Oh, Jay, if you are... When you say send me the story when you're done, do you mean like done narrating it? Chelsea Hofstetter with the $2 says, love your channel, makes me so happy. I love new uploads. Absolutely. I hope you guys love the newest upload that's coming out here closer to 7, or right around when the stream will be kind of completing things. Joel is wifey material. I would make a great house man. Could just do YouTube videos during the day while my babe is out working in the man mines, digging up brown eyes. Love the podcast. Awesome. Yeah, guys, if you haven't seen the podcast yet, definitely check that out. It's cool because it's basically like my compilation videos, but they're will be weekly released on iTunes and Spotify, and those links are down below. I release every Saturday, so you guys can look forward to the newest one coming out this Saturday. And it's older uploads, but I think it's just nice because it's like you got, don't have to worry about a bunch of ads from YouTube or anything like that. Though I am doing some sort of ad integration, but it would only be like a minute thing, and it will actually be my voice. It won't be someone interrupting or anything like that and saying you should buy Nike's newest poop pants to keep the poop out of your pants. Eric with the $2 says, made myself sad trying to get hooked up on stream. Oh, that's okay. No, yeah, nothing to be sad about, man. I am right there with you. I'm a single boy nearing my 30th year on this earth as well, and it all comes in due time, on the Lord's time. Uncle Dominic, what happened to your brother? I sort of froze up and paused, maddened. Tommy wasn't my actual nephew, but actually my cousin's 7-year-old son. But even though I'm only 19, I proudly tout Tommy as my nephew. I don't think that's a story that I can tell you. Maybe your dad would tell you. Even if I told him, he wouldn't understand. Plus, I wouldn't want him to actually try to understand. But he's your brother, shouldn't you tell me? Damn, he makes a good point. I pulled him close to me. Listen, you ask your dad if I can tell you the story, then if he says yes, I will. Okay, he said gleefully. I knew that smile he was wearing would quickly go away as soon as I had told him the story. I resumed Madden and proceeded to get beat. That night I realized that I was glad that Tommy brought up Zach. In case anything happened to me, I've always wanted to write down the true story. So around 8 that night, I powered up my computer and started writing. I was 10, Zach was 9, and Craig, Tommy's father, was 14. I still remember my grandpa Bill told us a day before it happened. Just promise me that you 3 won't mess around in the attic. I have a lot of things up there that I don't want touched. We were up north because Grandpa was dying. Grandpa's house is more like a cabin, but a bit more modern looking. We didn't need Grandpa to tell us not to play in the attic. Nearly every adult there told us that at least twice. So what did the 3 of us do? Played in the damn attic as soon as the 6 adults took Grandpa for a walk. The attic was absolutely huge. It wasn't clustered either. Sure, a lot of junk was stacked against the wall, but the rest of the attic was carpeted. At the very end, next to the window, they even had a TV and rocking chair set up. He immediately started going through the stuff on the side. We were specifically looking for carnival stuff. I should probably mention that my grandfather was a ringmaster at a carnival back in the mid-50s. I was looking through old sideshow posters. Zach was holding a shrunken head in a jar, and Craig was trying on an old strongman uniform when we heard a loud thump behind us. As soon as I turned around, my heart nearly jumped out of my chest. An old cowboy puppet was leaning against something very large. It was covered by a big white sheet. I took a step towards the back and the puppet moved. Its head started spinning uncontrollably. Craig, Zach, and I were screaming. This went on for a good 10 seconds before a loud, billowing laugh from behind the sheet interrupted us. I was about to hear his voice for the first time. Don't be afraid, children. It's not real. As soon as the voice said that, the puppet began to dematerialize. Who's there? Craig tried to sound tough, but he was shitting his pants. Remove the sheet. I think I know who you are. You're William's grandson, right? I hadn't noticed the voice had a Russian accent until then. Yes, we are, Zach managed to squeak out. Splendid. I'm a friend of your grandfather, so please remove the sheet. Zach bolted to the back of the room. Craig and I tried to grab him, but we were too slow. I almost closed my eyes as soon as Zach ripped that sheet away. I honestly wish I had. The sheet was covering a large cage, but in place of metal bars, large panes of glass surrounded the cage. It reminded me of Silence of the Lambs, but inside the cage was the creature that was going to destroy my life. It had a human head and face. Hell, its face looked like a young Malcolm McDowell, but it had a single blood-red horn jutting from its forehead. It was also wearing a fancy suit, but its hands were also creepy. They were very skinny. Well, he was in general, and instead of fingernails, he had claws that resembled huge needles. It was very tall, but it was sitting down in a leather chair. It put down its coffee mug on the end of the table next to it. Does my appearance frighten you? All 3 of us nodded in unison. What are you? I asked. A huge grin grew over its face. Let me introduce myself the way William used to introduce me. It then stood. Yeah, it definitely was 6'11" and cleared its throat. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to introduce you to Ivan Mortas, the product of an unholy union between a demon and a poor Russian woman. Gaze at his odd appearance. He can project hallucinations into this world that nearly everyone will see as real. Don't get too close, though. His sitting body temperature will burn you. Ivan murdered 6 men and women in 1942. I saved him from a Russian prison. Well, rather I saved the other inmates." Ivan then clapped his hand together, which caused a small fireball. At this point, Zach was hiding behind me. "Are you bad?" Craig asked Ivan. "Oh, my dear boy, I can answer that once I'm out of here," Ivan said with a smirk. As soon as he said that, all 3 of us heard heavy footsteps behind us. We all turned around to see a large man in a horse mask running at us. Zach freaked out and rammed into the side door of the cage. I watched as a glowing red necklace fell off the padlock. The masked man vanished, but a loud bang attacked my eardrums next. What happened next is still a blur for me. I remember Ivan breaking through the door, holding Zach in the air, Zach going limp. Then I got up and ran at Ivan. Ivan simply looked at me and I flew backwards. I saw blood coming from Zach's mouth, so I started crying. Ivan then dropped Zach and started walking towards me. Then the attic door swung open and I saw a figure sprinting towards Ivan. I shook my head a few times before I realized that it was my grandfather. Impossible. Grandpa could barely stand just a few hours earlier. But I didn't care. Grandpa pulled out a knife with a red blade and plunged it into Ivan's back. Ivan and Grandpa took turns stabbing each other, Ivan with his claws, as Grandpa tried to wrangle the weakened monster back into its cage. As soon as he did, Grandpa collapsed. We buried both Grandpa and Zach in the same week. Only 5 months later, right after his 15th birthday, Craig accidentally got his girlfriend pregnant. And here I am now, almost 8 years later. I sat back in my computer chair. I felt sick reading over every word I had just written. I was so focused on the computer that I hadn't even noticed a little girl standing right next to me. Blood dripped from her eye sockets, eyeless sockets, and it would vanish as it made contact onto my floor. "Ivan requests your company," she said sternly. "Tell him to fuck off. I saw him last week." The girl vanished after I said that. So yep, I live with the monster that killed my brother. Well, my parents do. After Grandpa and Zach died that day, they requested that Ivan be put in their basement. Our main job is to contain Ivan, to make sure that he cannot hurt anyone. It turns out that Ivan's biggest weakness is a rock called Relania. You can create it by performing a certain spell on an average rock. The knife that my grandpa stabbed Ivan with actually has bits of Relania dust inside the blade. I hit save on my document when my phone rang. It was Craig. "Hey Craig, what's up?" I heard that Tommy asked about Zach. I told him that if he wanted the story, then you'd have to say yes. I'm actually wondering if Tommy could come over and meet him." "Wait, you want him to meet Ivan already?" "If something ever happens to you and your parents, he's coming to live with me, so yes. Your parents aren't coming home for a couple of days, so I would like Tommy to meet Ivan." I heard Ivan cackling from the basement. "All right, come over by noon tomorrow. I gotta go. Bye." I hung up and set my phone on my chair. I walked over to the basement door, unlocked all 5 of the locks, and headed down the stairs. Walking into the basement was like a surreal trip. The same girl that had been sitting next to me tried to hug me as soon as I got to the bottom of the stairs. A killer clown ran at me with a knife. A young, emaciated woman with flies covering her face begged me for help as I walked by her. These apparitions used to shock me, but I've gotten used to them. I walked straight for the safe room that my father built. Ivan's cage is very old, so his magic has been seeping out a bit. "Do you really have to do all of this?" I asked him. "We've got nothing else to do." I walked over to a shelf and picked up a bag of Relania gravel. "So I have something to tell you." He raised his hand in the air. "Your cousin's son is coming to meet me. I heard." I stepped onto the stepladder behind the cage and held the bag next to the little vent that goes into his cage. "If you have any shred of decency, you will make all this shit go away." Ivan looked up through the vent and said, "But then he won't meet the real me." I dumped a bit of gravel through the vent. Little pieces bounced off his skin as he howled in pain. Next to the stepladder, a wolf and a zombie were both reaching for me. "I mean it!" I screamed. Ivan, still wincing in pain, snapped his fingers and the surreal atmosphere of the basement went away. I thanked Ivan and began to walk away. "Wait, Dominic!" he yelled at me. I turned around slightly. "Just don't let me out of the cage this time," Ivan said with a wink and a grin. I flipped him off and went upstairs. That night was the first night in 6 months that I didn't encounter any of Ivan's creations. I got an amazing night's sleep that night. The next morning I had to get the house ready for Tommy. I wasn't sure how he was going to react, but I wanted to make him feel comfortable. Around 10:30 a.m., a blood-covered contortionist crawled towards me as I was eating breakfast. "Ivan says he needs formal clothing," she said in her snake-like tone. "No, he already has enough suits. Tell him to just wait." The contortionist nodded and evaporated. I spent the next hour and a half trying to figure out what Tommy might ask me. Finally, I heard a car pull into my driveway at 12:14. Craig and Tommy rushed in the room. The rain was pretty bad. Craig instructed Tommy to go sit on the couch. He then pulled me aside. "Do you think he'll behave?" Craig asked. "When the fuck has he ever behaved? But if he tries to screw with Tommy, then I'll give him a nice bath." Craig squeezed my shoulder and we sat on the couch. I talked to Tommy and tried to explain what was going to happen. I told him that my brother was killed by someone his great-grandfather knew. I explained that Ivan was a bad person, and that sadly, if anything happened to me, Ivan would be moving to their house. I also tried to explain exactly what Ivan was, and before we went to the basement, I reminded Tommy that anything he sees outside of the cage is not real, and they won't hurt him. The walk down the stairs seemed to take forever. Different monsters stood on each side and stared at us. Tommy covered his eyes in fear. "Fresh meat," I heard Ivan say from the safe room. Before we entered the actual safe house, Craig told Tommy that he wanted him to stay away from the cage. But once we opened the door, Tommy's mouth dropped open. "That's a demon?" "Why, yes, son, I am," Ivan responded in a rude tone. I walked over to the shelf and grabbed the bag. "You killed my uncle's brother," Tommy said in his tough guy voice. "Yes, I did. I clawed him right in his little throat." Just then, Ivan conjured up my brother's body. It was very graphic. Craig immediately put his hands over Tommy's eyes as I ran to the top. I poured rocks in there until Ivan agreed to stop. "I'm just having fun with the boy. If they take me in, they'll have to deal with this stuff," Ivan growled. "Ivan, we won't hurt you as long as you promise you will never hurt my family again," Craig shouted. "But what's the fun in that? I've terrorized Dominic's parents to the brink of divorce, and now I'm working on destroying Dominic's life. I'm having way too much fun with this." I then went on a spree of pouring rocks into the cage. I kept asking him if he thought this was fun also. I wanted to keep going. I wanted to cause him more pain, but I didn't want to set a bad example for Tommy. "Hey kid," Ivan yelled at Tommy. "What's that?" He pointed to the ceiling. All three of us nearly shat our pants when we saw a giant frogman hanging from the ceiling. "Feast," Ivan said calmly. It took a good 5 minutes, but Craig and I were able to make it disappear. But unbeknownst to us, Ivan talked Tommy into talking to him. I saw Tommy go for the padlock, so I basically threw Tommy out of the way, grabbed a pistol and sat on the shelf, loaded it with Rilania bullets. "What are you going to do? Kill me?" Ivan asked smugly. I fired a warning shot at his leg. It hit, and Ivan was sent reeling. "That's it!" Ivan screamed. He snapped his fingers and a collection of monsters, killers, and supernatural beings all filled the room. Craig and Tommy got into the fetal position as I screamed, "Enough! Find your own family to fuck up!" "But I don't want to. I chose your guys' because of William." He sounded so cold as he said that. "Why?" Tommy squeaked. It was weird. I thought he would have been a lot more scared than he was letting on. Ivan tilted his head and rubbed his horn. What do you mean? If you were to put in there for being a bad person, why are you mad at us? Because your family is stupid to think that this cage will hold me forever. If they try to put me somewhere else, I'll kill them as soon as they unlock the door. Maybe it'll be you that I can feast on when you get older. Ivan then stared right at Craig. Plus, being stuck in this for so long really doesn't make me want to be friendly. I stepped closer. So all you want to do is be free. You'd kill people. Ivan practically smushed his face into the glass. But they'll be out of your hair. I was seriously thinking about saying yes. I turned to ask Craig what he thought, but I stopped in mid-turn. Something wasn't right. I didn't see anything glowing near the side door. Fuck. I moved fast to getting the pistol that I had knocked the necklace off. I whipped my head around and stared at Ivan. He began shifting into various freaks. Strongman, dwarf, snake boy, lobster boy, Siamese twins, tree man, missing link, and then finally back to himself. He stared me in the eyes as he raised his right arm. Time seemed to slow down as I saw the side door smash open. I don't know if Ivan did it, but Zach slowly materialized on the side of the cage and walked towards me. I think I heard Craig run upstairs with Tommy, but I was stuck staring at Zach. He outreached his hand, and so did I. As soon as they touched this, I felt a searing pain in my leg. The next thing I knew, I was flying through the air. Dozens of monsters and freaks and loved ones were staring at me as I was flying towards the hall. I also saw Ivan sprinting towards the stairs, and then black. I woke up in an ambulance. Craig and Tommy sat on the seat next to me. I looked at Craig inquisitively, so Craig said, "He just left." I then looked down at my right leg. It was burnt all to hell. My skin was still bubbling. I passed out. This all happened about a month ago. They were able to save my leg. It just looks like Freddy Krueger's head. When my parents came home, they were initially pissed, but with Ivan gone, the house is much less of a David Lynch movie and more of a home. In order to protect Tommy, Craig moved into my parents' house. We filled a ton of small vials with Relania dust and actually put it inside the doorways. We haven't had any Ivan issues since he left, though. Tommy isn't traumatized necessarily, but I don't think he was ready for all of that. Is Ivan out there doing harm to other people? Probably. But would I rather have him here than out there? Hell no. That may be selfish, but that monster has been our problem for over 50 years, and I think we deserve the chance to live without that burden. Why didn't he kill the three of us? I honestly don't know, and that pisses me off more than everything. Why did he spare us when he had no qualms with killing my brother? But honestly, I'd rather be rid of him than have closure. To do homework or listen to Joel? That is a tough question. That is honestly one of my favorite stories. I do really like that. It's like a classic. Garrett Wiseman with the $2 says, "Thank you. You are welcome, Garrett. I hope you enjoyed that." That was the actually last story on my list here. And Leah Cross with the $4 says, "Wife me up. Oof." Oh man, I do appreciate that. That makes me feel loved. And I love the oof meme. Oof always. I don't know where it came. I mean, I guess it came from Roblox or something like that, but it's just really funny. Sabrina says, "It's hard for me to like people's voices when they read stories, but yours is on point. I can actually visualize the stories in my head while I'm working. That's awesome." Leah, you have been noticed. Oh, man. But yeah, guys, I've been wondering how to take the channel in some new directions and stuff like that. And I have been in talks with this one author. His name is Mike Floorwalker. He's done a lot of, like, countdown stuff, and he's wrote for some pretty big, sort of top 10 channels and stuff. Leah Cross says I'm straight for Joel. Oh, that's funny. Thank you, Leah. But yeah, so Mike is currently in the process of kind of looking at channels like Nightmare Expo and Rainbot and various other ones like that to see what he can come up with. But I do I trust that he's a guy that can come across a lot of like intelligent topics and interesting topics to maybe do a lot more like documentary style stuff on the channel or analysis stuff. But yeah, I think that would be super cool if I can get that going. Obviously, the narrations will be the bread and butter of the channel, but it would be neat to branch out in that regard. Sorry I haven't really done many of the ASMR stuff. I know it's kind of been it's been a little busy actually with doing these narrations and then trying to get a little bit inspired. Oh my gosh, Leah with the $2 says, Joel, wife me up. Hey, you know where to DM me. Me and Eric Lane, you know where to DM us. You know where to find us. Oh man. But thank you. I appreciate that. Could do radio. Hi from Ireland. Me and my baby and 2 dogs here. That's awesome. I would like to do radio. That would be a lot of fun. Eric Lanes with $2 says, I just got a call from Kimmy. I feel special. There you go. Did they hit you up on the IG, the Instagram DMs there, or did you actually? Honestly, if Let's Read's chat becomes the matchmaking haven, I think I need to replace eHarmony and Tinder all in one foul swoop. Everybody just comes here and we can just meet up. That's awesome. But yeah, curious exactly where I'm gonna find ideas and stuff like that for, because I know to a certain extent it's like you look at Nightmare Expo and Rainbot. I'll look at her channel real quick. They're very kind of far and few between as far as content goes and stuff like that. But I have a lot of respect for the content that they do put out when they put it out, because it's not like rushed and it's not trying to like fill some sort of hole or whatever that's or like sort of quota of videos or anything like that. Obviously it's good to have consistent content, but you have something like Exploring the Momo situation has like 2.1 million views, and that probably was really good for Rainbot's channel, I would hope. And it's exciting to see, like, oh wow, that's funny, the content for this YouTube is inappropriate or offensive to some audiences. I just wanted to give a huge thank you to. Sorry, blow my ears out there. So that's the only slightly unfortunate aspect about that, is that like as scary content gets popular, it can be flagged as maybe not necessarily appropriate for things on YouTube as they start to go down that kind of crappy direction, I suppose. But Eric says with $2 says, Kimmy has a very beautiful voice. That's good to know, Kimmy. Maybe it's time to break into the old narration game there. But yeah, I'm going to read a story for you guys here. We're going to probably just kind of roll through the actual subreddit here. This happened about a year ago. It was about 3 a.m. It was a full moon outside, and my dad had to get to work and drop me off at my mom's house. The drive was going fine for about 5 minutes. We were driving down a deserted road in the middle of the night when, out of nowhere, a man appears in the distance and turns around and starts waving his hands. It was odd that someone would be out this way this early in the morning because it was quite a small town and there was nothing around for about 3 miles. So my dad decided to stop the car and see if he needed help. Small towns make for fight or flight heightened or non-existent. I guess you could say my dad's was non-existent. My dad slows the car down, and I kid you not, this weird guy smirks as we come up to him. My dad opens the window all the way and asks the guy if he needs help. This guy responds with a very slurred, "Sup," and starts reaching for my dad's door handle. No need to say that my dad sped off as soon as that happened. The car was completely silent for about 30 minutes after that. Momo. Well, Leah, are you asking for the link to Momo, or what are we talking about? Hey, Elizabeth Dellinger with the $2 says, "Paranormal, please. Also, single North Carolina girl here." Rutro. Opening the floodgates. No, I'm just kidding. This is good. I appreciate that. If only I could meet you guys IRL. It is funny coming on here until just this sort of I guess you could call it dichotomy or difference between my real life abilities with the ladies and meeting you guys on here. I appreciate the love because it's hard to find it elsewhere. And Summercat, hey Summercat, I remember you from the streams prior here with the Big 25, says, "My day at work has been terrible, but I'm looking forward to coming home and watching your videos. Hope your day will be better. I have no suggestions for stories. I just wanted to donate. Narrator's choice as always." You bet, Summercat. Thank you so much for that. I hope your day at work is going swimmingly. All right, let's jump into a paranormal story here. We can actually read a few for Elizabeth here since these ones are kind of short. So I was 4 years old when I was taking a bath with my mother helping me, and I asked her about how I died. My mother freaked out enough to keep telling me everyone this story even now, even though it's been 22 years. My mother's son, who passed away 3 days after her birth because he had fluids in his lungs, was born the same day as me, at the same hour, 10 years prior. Also room 10. I'm not saying I'm his reincarnate because obviously the time frame doesn't really add up, but it is a pretty upsetting story, right? Also, I have asthma and respiratory issues since I can remember, which is funny. I used to have dreams of divination when I was little. They stopped when I was diagnosed. Still can't believe it. And my mom... They stopped when I diagnosed my aunt with cancer and died. I was able to do it again very recently, but I asked not to see those anymore since they're not pretty. What do you think? P.S. I'm adopted. It was all by pure chance. Also, after saying these words, I remained silent, staring into space for 45 minutes. Doctor said it can happen. They scanned me and I'm fine. I also suffer from BPD and emotional issues nowadays. I swear I'm not making any of this up. I just want and need an explanation. Do I have any secret talents? What are my talents? I can juggle. If you give me 3 bean bags or something that are of decent weight, or even 3 apples or something, I can definitely juggle. Are you interested in alien abduction stories / crime? Your ASMR is great. That's cool. Thank you. I love those kinds of stories. Vanikins with the $2 says, late to the party, but hey, poke Pradeep for me. He is, where is that little boy? He is somewhere around here. I'll give him a poke just for you, Vanikins. Thank you. Yeah, surprisingly, Emily, juggling is not as crazy as I thought it would be. My roommate in college knew how to do it, and he just we started with two balls, and then moved on to 3 once I got kind of the motion down, and it's really just kind of like a muscle memory type thing. This happened this afternoon. A family friend, Kay, died recently, and her family haven't been able to clear her house, or didn't want to make time as they weren't particularly close to their mother. As a favor, my mother and I had been clearing Kay's house for the past 2 days. She was a hoarder of everything broken, not needed, or just anything anybody gave her. The house was built around 1790 to 1800, so there are little cubby holes everywhere which are stuffed with stuff. She was definitely a character and had moments of not being particularly nice to her kids and sometimes other people. It has been a long 2 days and where we've been discussing her, astounded by the stuff in her house and our memories of her. As we left earlier today, I said, well, goodbye, Kay, and went to close the inner porch door. I was the last out of the house, and I had problems shutting the inner door. When it eventually swung shut, I had to pull it closed about 3 times before the latch eventually caught. As we got back to our cars, Mum suddenly remembered she hadn't locked the back door, so I went into the house to lock it. As I left the house again and stepped through the inner door, I gently pulled the door toward me, expecting to pull the door again and then tug it to make the latch catch, when the door literally slammed shut in my face. There were no windows open and the back door was closed. I think I was being told to get lost and not come back. Hunem says you want the Discord link. Yeah, let me invite you guys to the Discord. We're always looking for more people to come hang out there. There's just the same positive group that we have here exists on there, so that's always a good time, but the party never stops. We just keep going. Except I don't read as many stories there, I guess. But yeah, everybody, if there's different ways to message me. If you have stories or anything like that, you can hit me up on Instagram, on Twitter, on Discord, which I'm like always on Discord and stuff like that. I'm always happy to chat with people. I'm not like the best at responding to everything, but I definitely appreciate it because just kind of a normal dude, normal local yokel. Just kind of hanging out, and definitely always makes my day to have a nice interaction with everybody. Summer Cat with the $2 says, Milo on the Discord says hi and can't access YouTube right now. Oh, okay, weird. I wonder what's going on with YouTube. That's strange. So my Twitter is, if you scroll down into the description, there's a few things there. So the Twitter name is Let's Read Creepy, and then Instagram name is @letsread.official. So those are my social media follows. There's also a few other things in there too, as far as letting people know that when the stream is done and people want to access it later, they can access it through the streams playlist. It also says like gaming, Q&A, reading, live streams or whatever, and it's basically this video but unlisted, and so it doesn't clutter the main page of the narrations, and then you can check that out there. There's also links to the Apple and Spotify podcast. If you guys want to support the channel on Patreon, you guys have been incredibly generous today with donations and stuff. If you wanted to take one of those donations and get early access to Patreon, which basically all of my narrations that I do throughout the week go up probably about 24 hours before they come out on YouTube in a downloadable MP3 format. You can do that on Patreon, and that's a cool place to show support, and I appreciate that. Also, if you have stories that you want to send in, reddit.com/r/Let's Read Official, that's my subreddit, but there's also other various Reddits that you can share your stories on as well if you just want like the maximum feedback that you can get. And then we talked about the Buttersock Cult. There's lots of cool Spreadshirt and lots of cool merchandise over at shop.spreadshirt.com/Let's Read. And then, like I said, hit up that Twitter and Instagram, and you can see all the silly things I post on there, which is quite a bit. Eric Lane says, I want to marry a girl with a diamond Pokemon ring. So, like, the ring is made of, like, Pokemon Diamond, the cartridge. Is that what that is? Because that would be pretty amazing. Alright, so, we are going to read a story for our good friend Kat here with her big dono, and I love Facebook. I love memes. I love talking to new people. I love long comment sections. That being said, I never give away personal information such as where I work or live. My birthday info is private, so on and so on. I've made quite a few friends that I don't know personally, but agree with or had really good discussions with. So after commenting back and forth on a friend's post for a while, it was no surprise to me when Tyler messaged me. It started off fairly simple. We just talked about the post we commented on, how do you do's, common interests. I was excited to have a new friend. He seemed pretty interesting and we had a lot in common. I'm not a beauty queen or anything, but I let him know about an hour of casual conversation that I was taken happily. I enjoyed his friendship, but it wouldn't lead into anything more since I'm going to get married next year. He seemed a little upset, but respectful. Great. I told him good night, went to sleep, thought nothing of it. The conversation continued for a few days. He started to get a little pushy if I didn't respond immediately, and I told him I'm very busy, so I may not always answer right away, and he apologized and told me he's just bored or lonely. I started to put a little distance because he didn't really back down, but I didn't want to completely give up my new friendship because I hated the fact that he was so lonely. One day, he randomly messaged me saying he wanted to have me in his arms. Immediately, I nipped that in the bud, reminding him of my relationship and telling him if he didn't stop that our friendship would be done because I respect and am loyal to my fiancé about anyone else. He immediately lost his shit, messaging me saying he didn't care about my fiancé, making threats towards him, etc. I stopped messaging and selected to put his messages on ignore. He could still message me, but it would go into my inbox. I made a post about it, and a friend of mine commented and said he had done the same thing to her, except he knew where she lived and would show up outside her house. I freaked out and went to see if there were more messages from him, because she told he was bad news and I should call the police if any threats were being made. And this is where the shitstorm really begins. He messaged me over a dozen times. Different things. Started off kind of taunting me for not answering, then moved on to him messaging me about some asshole who cut him off or was driving too slow for his taste. Then to him saying he was about to go shoot the guy, and it would be my fault because I made him so angry by ignoring him. I messaged him telling him to leave me the hell alone and stop replying for a while. He started messaging me narrowing down on where I live. That really freaked me out, as I had never told him where I lived or anything even remotely close to my house. The only thing I had ever said was that I'd talk to him later because I was going to Arby's to get some food and my phone was dying. Yet he somehow knew I was 7 minutes from the Arby's by my house, exactly how long it takes to walk there for me. And there are several Arby's in my city. Then he started narrowing down to what street I lived on, down to knowing a 4-door black sedan was linked to my address, which there was, but not in my name. It was in my sister's name when she registered it as an Uber. That was enough for me, and I called the non-emergency line. The police refused to do anything, of course, saying until he actually showed up or did something, there would be nothing they could be. Never mind that he was sending pictures of dead people and saying that he was going to be my family and was narrowing down my address. Unless he actually showed up, apparently I was screwed. All I could do was apply for a protective order, so I did. Tyler kept messaging me, so I told him there was a PO in place and he needed to leave me alone. He responded with there was nothing that could be done until he was served and signed, which is true. My fiancé is in IT and has a cousin who is pretty tech-savvy as well and managed to get the last couple of addresses Tyler had, but the police couldn't find him at either of those. We had license plate numbers, address, full name, birthday, etc., yet he seemed untraceable. He stopped for a while, but the day of my court case to have the PO extended to 2 years, he started again. My fiancé filed criminal charges for the threats he made. He said, "Someone could come shoot you in 15 minutes. His last known address was exactly a 15-minute drive from my house, and I spent the last couple of months completely afraid. He was arrested and served finally. I think he was speeding or something, and it turns out he has a history of this. Multiple charges, all dropped or dismissed. He's done it to a couple of my friends who showed up to my court case for the criminal charges. They dropped everything from felonies to misdemeanors, disorderly conduct charge with 12 months suspended jail time depending on his behavior because they couldn't prove it was him and not someone else behind the keyboard, especially with me never seeing his face in real life before this court date, even though I had 2 people who had received messages from him and saw him face to face as well. I can't sleep. The slightest noises make me panic. It's been hell for me and my family." Dude, that sucks. I just always think about that. I get so many of those stories where people had a stalker who was like, "Oh, you're so beautiful," and then they're like, "Oh, not really into you, man," or whatever. And then the dude just goes off the rocker and is threatening to kill them and, just completely insane. Eric Lane, sleep now. Ladies, text me if you like. Well, there you go, ladies. The number is right there. Eric just needs one good stalker like in this story. That's all he needs. Just kidding. Please be nice to Eric. Do I have any personal interesting stories? Well, I can tell you exactly what got me familiar with using microphones, or using this microphone, in fact, that got me into doing YouTube and reading stories and such. So, back in college, I worked at a bar, had a few friends that were in the film major here at the college, and the girl was doing a documentary about her sister, who happened to be a stripper. We're going 0 to 100 real quick. And good people, you know what I mean? I was friends with her for quite a while, and her sister had been working, I guess, just various jobs and at a strip club and just doing that whole thing. And, tis what it is. And I guess she had also participated in sort of a traveling aspect of that job where she would go to different pageants and it was stripping, but you put on sort of a show at the same time and in a similar sort of more raunchy fun fashion than Miss America. It was it's that was that. So, anyways, it was her sister. She had a bouncer from the club that she worked at that was going to be like her roadie and help her get set up with stuff and all of us. And then my friend's colleague or friend, also from the film college, was it was essentially. Sorry, I'm like reading chat at the same time here. He was like the editor or whatever, so he went along and sort of co-directed and stuff like that. And then they just needed like a sound guy, essentially. Enzify with the $2 says, "Hi, Lates Read. When's the next gameplay video up?" By gameplay video, do you mean like gameplay stream or like gameplay in the background of my normal narration videos? So yeah, I was to be the sound guy on this trip, and it was a lot of fun. You know what I mean? It was like it was funny. Like the girl who was the stripper and her sister literally argued from start to finish, which was pretty entertaining but also annoying because we like could hardly get anything done. But I learned about a lot of things about just being like a sound guy. It was like I had this particular microphone connected to like a boom stick and stuff like that, and just had a lot of fun on the road. And this was like right before I started taking my nursing examinations to do that, so it was sort of like one last hurrah before real life sort of hits you and that kind of thing. Obviously, you don't have to stop having fun once you start like a real life job, but it kind of slows things down a little bit. And yeah, it was a good time. And it was unfortunate part was that the audio. So this is what I was told, is that they never finished the documentary because they moved to Colorado, and I think a lot of different things happened. And that obviously when you're in film and entertainment, you have to get into you have to make money. You know what I mean? So it's like these side jobs, which she did do a GoFundMe for it or whatever it was back then. So it's funny, like so many people gave her money, but it didn't. It didn't work. It didn't quite pan out. But one really weird part was that the editor who went along with us, who was like a really nice guy, he moved to Colorado. And I guess like it moved to Colorado, and I guess he took too much LSD or something like that. And literally, I saw a YouTube video with him in it where he was part of some like really strange cult where it was like loosely Christian to a certain extent with like various like revelation prophecy crap in it. But like it was led by this like older woman who was like in her 50s or something. And this friend that I had became pretty good friends with after this trip and all that kind of stuff had literally taken so much LSD that his brain had like receded into the, and this is just what I was told, like how it led that way. I don't know if he had some underlying mental health issues, but basically his brain receded into being that of like a fucking like 4-year-old. And like I remember he was on this video and she was like, "What are you drawing there? What are you drawing?" And he's like, "I'm just drawing Jesus with the mother and he's getting ready to ascend." And it was weird. It was like I was watching some sort of, I thought he was like acting. It was so strange, but it turned out to be like real. And he was captured into this like strange cult out in Colorado. And literally he was drawing stick figures on paper. And I even commented on the video. I was like, "Oh, poor, what's his name?" And then the videos just mysteriously, disappeared off of YouTube very shortly after that. So that was kind of strange. That's what happened to the original lead singer of Pink Floyd. They wrote "Wish You Were Here" and it's all about him. Yeah, man. People like to experiment with drugs and shit like that, and I get it. It's all part of like it's all part of growing up, experimenting, living life, whatever. But honestly, at my church, we had a kid who literally took like way too much freaking LSD, and he was all over the place, from the point of like wanting to like start his own church, which was fine. Like, we were excited about that, but it was like all the whacked out shit that he was saying that he believed. And then he was like converting to like, all of a sudden it went from starting like a Christian church and being all about that to like all of a sudden starting like his own like Islamic sect or something. And then eventually he himself like ended up in a local sort of insane asylum type thing. And it's just like, oh my God, dude, can we just like put the LSD down for 10 seconds so everyone doesn't just go off and like start a cult and or join a cult? What does Creed say from The Office, where he's like, been in a cult, led a cult. He's like, being in a cult's a lot more fun. Leading one makes you a lot more money. Enzify says, gameplay stream, my bad, meant to clarify. Hey, no worries, thanks for the 2. Yeah, to be honest with you, like, I don't know how long it will be till I ever really do a gameplay stream again, just because I tried it for a brief period of time, and like, so like right now, we're at like 314 people, which is so cool. That is awesome, and I'm really stoked about that. But like, whenever I do gameplay streams, like, I know I could just change it up every once in a while, but whenever I do gameplay streams, it's somewhere close to like 40 or 50, and I don't really feel like I'm good at any games or anything like that, or that, maybe I'm wrong. I don't really feel like I'm that entertaining as far as like playing games go, that like a lot of people see that I'm streaming, jump in thinking it's a read thing, and then it just kind of actually hurts the channel, I guess, a little bit when people come and like go really fast, because sort of makes the content not seem appealing or whatever. So I'll most likely just stick to reading streams, which I think you guys can appreciate anyways, because I by no means am like, yeah, oh, that sucks, I'm funny at gameplay. That's good. Yeah, it was difficult finding like good settings for my, like, maybe I could get like a headset, like an actual headset that like I could plug in, so it's not like I have to worry about my like H4n mic that I have here sort of getting in the way or anything. But it is what it is. I'm just sticking to the niche and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, horror game was fun because I played that one, which I thought was kind of fun, the Layers of Fear and stuff like that. That's not to say that I won't give it a whirl down the road. I just find like people are a lot more stoked for narration streams, and I can interact with you guys a lot easier when I'm not focused on the game. I can just like look over a chat, read a story, and it's like, I feel like it's constantly engaging to a certain extent. Slumber Party, Stalkers. So this story happened last year on my birthday. I had just turned 25 and had no real big plans for a party. I recently moved from my hometown of Austin, Texas, to the more sleepy town of Victoria, Texas, about 2.5 hours away with my fiancé Dustin. I should also note that I am also a male. I had a falling out with pretty much most of my friends back home, so any chance of a get-together was out of the question. Luckily for me, I am a social butterfly, and making new friends was no problem. After going over several scenarios for some kind of birthday celebration, I narrowed it down to having dinner at a decent Mexican restaurant, Chino's, and then back to our apartment for an old-fashioned slumber party. I'm not one for bar hopping. Kickbacks and house parties with a handful of friends is more my idea of fun. KTU donated $5. Sorry, the only reason I interrupted the story there was just because I didn't have anybody actually lined up for the story, so I kind of just wanted to make sure I didn't miss anything. Thank you, KTU, for the donation there. If you had a type of story, paranormal or true, that you wanted to hear, be sure to at me here while I'm reading this one. That'd be awesome. Anyways, my guest list included Dustin, myself, my friend Whitney, her boyfriend Michael, Dustin's cousin Cheyenne, and her best friend Gabby. After dinner, we made it back to my small apartment, which was located in the downtown area. We put on some music and Dustin became our own personal bartender. Most of the night consisted of playing drinking card games like Waterfall and High and Low. By 1 a.m., we were all swimming in alcohol and Gabby and Cheyenne were floating on weed. In a drunken stupor, Michael made his way downstairs to take a leak outside since the girls were hogging up the bathroom. After a few minutes, Michael came back inside and asked if anyone else was coming up to the party. I said no and asked why. He proceeded to tell me that while he was leaned up along the fence doing his business, he noticed a black truck sitting in the parking lot with the engine on. He couldn't see who was behind the wheel, only that he could make out the details of a man wearing a baseball cap. Please note that the apartment is really more a duplex with 4 units, so the parking lot is only so big with only so many cars in it, which I could all account for. My 3 neighbors don't have trucks, so a big black truck sitting outside in the lot was pretty creepy and random. Michael also mentioned the man stuck his hand out of the window and waved at him. Not a friendly, "Hey, how are you doing" wave, but a slow wave as to say, "I see you." He wasn't scared as much as he was just creeped out and returned upstairs. We brushed it off thinking maybe it was someone visiting one of the neighbors, but in the 4 months I've been here, I've never seen a black truck hanging around. My train of thought was broken when the sound of a loud banging occurred. Someone was knocking violently on the door. This made all of us jump, and Whitney dropped her bottle and it shattered on the floor. Gabby and Cheyenne emerged from the bathroom in a haze, asking what the commotion was. No one answered them, and after a god-awful, disturbing moment of silence, we heard scraping at the door, like someone was running their nails in an up-and-down motion. Then came the words, the most disgusting and outrageous words. The stranger spoke in a soft gurgle, almost like a hiss. "Let me in. Open the door. Let me in. Let me in, and I'll let you lick it. Lick it." That last bit was said in a deep man's voice and was followed by the most perverse moaning. Of course, there were other things he said about what he wanted to do to the girls, that he saw us leaving the restaurant, and other horrific things that I just can't simply and won't repeat here. The stranger banged against the door again. The stranger banged against the door again, and this time it made Gabby scream. Dustin demanded I take the girls and lock ourselves into the bedroom and call the police. I'm not a fighter in any way, but Dustin and Michael are 2 very well-built countrymen who by nature don't run from anything. In the room, Cheyenne tried to comfort Gabby as best as he could while I ordered Whitney to go into the bathroom and call the police. I pressed my ear to the door to listen. I heard Michael give the man a warning to leave, and after a few seconds, I heard heavy footsteps run down the stairs. Then 2 more sets of footsteps followed. I peeked through the door and saw Dustin and Michael gone and the front door wide open. They chased the man away and watched him jump into the truck and haul ass like a bat out of hell down the street. After the police left, none of us got any real sleep that night. Michael and Dustin stood guard till morning. It's almost been 1 year since then. My birthday is coming up next month, and I do plan on having another party. I just hope and pray that we don't ever see the black truck or hear that man's awful voice ever again. Lick it! Lick it! Yeah. Everybody's counting down to the big new video. Cecilia, good night. Thanks for hanging out. Bianca. Bianca's like, what did I walk into? Welcome to the Buttersock cult. Oh man, you're just in time, Bianca. The creepypasta guy's here, guys. Got another narrator in the chat. He says, hey man, creepypasta guy, what is poppin', my guy? everybody check out the Creepypasta Guy. He's another awesome narrator. And he will also lull you into some beautiful, beautiful nightmares. Since there's no sort of outright requests right now for stories or anything like that, or any donations, for a little bit here, I guess I'd like to maybe delve into the world of creepypasta for a bit. Now, do you guys have any favorite creepypastas that maybe you would like to hear? The Lick It creepypasta? Yeah, if your favorite video is the 10 scary 2-sentence stories, you will be excited to know that we are pretty much 4 animations in with Axeman Cartoons, as far as on to part 2. So that should be exciting. 2-sentence, or what is it, 10 2-sentence horror stories animated part 2. So that should be sick. Jeff the Killer. What did I say the one time? I was like, Dan the Murderer. I didn't remember what it was, so I called it Dan the Murderer. This is a nice long boy. Oh, shit. Wonder how I sort by, like, I wish there was a way to sort by whether it was, like, in the open, you know, like the Creative Commons, like, law able to be used. Does anybody know if there's, like, a creepypasta, you want to be the keys on Joel's keyboard? They are very happy with the life they have here with me. Gentle strokes. Yeah, so let's see. Maybe the wiki, if you guys, the wiki usually tells you if the green tea, love your hair. Oh, sorry. I don't know if there is a way to sort user rights. The Hell Inside My Head. Let's take a peek at that one. Content available under Creative Commons. Let's take a look-see. Okay, sweet. So they are cool with this one being read, so I will do that one. Dark web. Oh, shit. We'll try this one first and then see how far we get. My friend just messaged me. He said he just tried to make homemade stuffed crust pizza. That's pretty hilarious. It kind of sucks that Pizza Hut is like the only pizza place that does stuffed crust. I mean, I think you can also get it at stores, maybe like DiGiorno or something, but I feel like Pizza Hut has like a patent on that, and I think that's like a little unfair to the rest of America. Before I start in with what happened, I just need to warn you about a few things. First, I'm not all there in the head. I have schizophrenia and have been on various medications for the past 14 years with varying degrees of success. Each of them helped a bit, but nothing substantial. Electroshock, attempted in desperation for a cure, instead exacerbated the condition, much to the dismay of both myself and the doctors. Secondly, I'm rather craven. Sure, I can handle normal stuff, snakes, spiders, etc. When it comes to anything else, though, I turn into a complete coward, curl into a ball, and wait for it to pass. With all that's happened, I doubt you'll be able to blame me. Just trust me on that. Third, and probably most important, everything I am about to tell you happened after the electroshock treatments. Because of this, I entirely blame the doctors for everything that happened. Before that therapy, sure, I'd see the occasional oddity and hallucination, but afterward, my life became a constant nightmare. Hey, Spooky Whisperings here. Thank you for moderating, Spooky. It's good to see you. Everybody's been super nice. Finally, I should probably tell you why I'm writing this in the first place. The short version is, I'm worried about how much I'll be able to tell before they get to me again, and I want to get as much out there as I can. Even if no one believes me, I need to send this out in the hope that someone will know how to help me. The doctor took me in for shock therapy. The day after my surgery, I saw the first one. I was lying in the hospital bed. It was as uncomfortable as ever, but I've been pretty heavily confined to that bed ever since I got to the medical floor. I really didn't have much choice but to get used to it. Dr. Marcus slid open the glass door and came into my room. Good, you're awake. We need to run a basic diagnostic test. Now, I understand that you had a traumatic experience. However, we need to get this done, and the sooner the better. So, if you don't mind, can you tell me what you see? Dr. Marcus held up a card with a picture of a pear on it. I see a pear. Are we done? No, afraid not. The doctor's face dropped into a regretful frown. Here's the next card. What do you see? This time the picture was of a home and family. It looked like it was drawn by a 3-year-old. It's a house and a family. Is this really necessary? I'd like to get up and stretch my legs. Please, be patient, Ray. I guess he thought that using my name would make me feel better. I need you to identify one more picture for me. Here, just tell me what you see. Another card. This time, though, the picture creeped me out. It looked like a shadow of a person, if it stood up. There was no one attached to it, just the figure. It was entirely pitch black with no features, save for 2 tiny pinpricks where the eyes would be. They looked like stars in the night sky. This is how it started, and I would soon come to regard that image with utter dread. I see a shadowy person with stars for eyes. Where did you get that one? I don't remember it from last time. I wasn't lying. This was a test I had taken many times. Each time they wanted to assess how a new treatment or medication was working. They gave me this test. It was easy. I had actually memorized all the cards by this point, but that one was definitely new. Dr. Marcus gave me a look that was unlike any he had shown before, a mix of puzzlement and confusion and maybe disbelief. Regardless, he made a strange face and looked at the card himself. Are you sure that's what you see here? He asked, turning the card to me again. This time I did recognize the card. It wasn't the figure from before. It was instead a crudely drawn police officer standing next to a crudely drawn police cruiser. What had happened to the photo from before? Or was this a real photo and the last one fake? I hate asking myself questions like that. I learned long ago that when you live the way that I live, inquiries about what's real and what's not real tend to go unanswered, and end up running you in circles until you're too exhausted to think. I dropped the thought from my mind to avoid the hassle. Dr. Marcus, however, was still waiting for the answer. I told him something I thought he would accept as a viable response. The shadow was the officer next to the police car. He saw right through my ploy. It seems to me that you may be experiencing some unforeseen side effects. That's why we do this test, you know, to ascertain whether the treatment is an improvement or a detriment. I had already heard the speech and didn't care to listen to him beat a dead horse. In retrospect, I should have been more fair to him. He really was trying to help. I see that now. I was too tired, though, and wanted to go back to my room instead of spending another minute in that uncomfortable bed. Eventually, he finished his speech, wrote another prescription, and let me get up. I was happy to be walking out of there. My left leg had fallen asleep, but that was still less irritating than the speech I was given. Dr. Marcus opened my door and shuffled me inside. locking the door as he shut it behind me. I didn't mind. I actually liked my room, save for the monotone color scheme. Whitewashed walls occasionally interrupted by a smudge of crayon from some loony. Boring. The rest of the room was more to my liking. My bed was far better than the one I had been confined to before, and I had a small table that sat next to it, complete with an adjustable desk lamp. The table had a single unlocked drawer, which I was not able to have the key to. I didn't care, oh crap. I just realized something. Shoot. Alright, I just realized something that I need to check very quickly before the new video comes out that I didn't change. I don't know if I changed that in the video description. Crap. I'm hoping that is... Oh, there it is. Yeah, I did not change that. I'm an idiot. I hope this doesn't screw anything up. So basically at the bottom of my videos you can put hashtags, and you can put up to like 3 hashtags that like you can associate with the video and stuff. And I remember I had in my like a saved document on my desktop like one that said like horror, scary, and let's read or something, and it didn't even show the horror one whenever it popped up, and then it also demonetized my video. So so I'm worried that now that I changed that YouTube's gonna have to like process the video a trillion times again, and then because it was so close to its release here, it's gonna demonetize it over again. God dang it, this is so annoying. I honestly hate the state of YouTube right now. It's literally like so unpredictable. You don't even know if you're doing something wrong or right, or you just like literally everything is just like a guessing game of whether or not you're going to get demonetized, and I don't even know. I just hope that doesn't screw everything up there, because if you make any changes later on, YouTube has to like reprocess crap, and I don't know. We shall see. I can't be pessimistic about it because we shall see. But Lorena Batista with the $5. Thank you, Lorena. Yeah, Spooky's promoting the Patreon. Yeah, if you guys, that would be awesome. If you guys want early access and that kind of thing, or if you just want to support the channel, obviously I appreciate your donations on here. But you can also, if you, rather than donating on here, you could do monthly donations on Patreon, where essentially it's just $1 a month or more for early access to like everything that comes out. So, and that's kind of cool. You can download it and keep it on your Zune or iPad or your Walkman, or just on your computer is nice too. Okay, so yeah, let's keep reading through the story. This will probably be the last story we read here before releasing the video. Eventually he finished his speech, wrote another prescription, and let me get up. I was happy to be walking out of there. My left leg had fallen asleep, but this was still less irritating than the speech I was given. Dr. Marcus opened my door and shuffled me inside, locking the door as he shut it behind me. I didn't mind. I actually liked my room, save for the monotone color scheme, whitewashed walls and occasionally interrupted by a smudge of crayon from some loony. Boring. The rest of the room was more to my liking. My bed was far better than the one I had been confined to before, and I had a small table that sat next to it, complete with an adjustable desk lamp. The table had a single unlocked drawer, which I was not allowed to have the key to. I didn't care, since the only thing in there were my sketches. I liked to draw, and that was the best place for me to hide them so the other residents didn't get at them. They were like damn vultures, I swear, picking at everything, regardless of whether they had any actual interest in it. You may have realized at this point that the room I had just described sounds like a room in a mental institution. Actually, I suppose everything I've talked about so far does, doesn't it? If so, you've earned yourself a cookie, because in the 4 years leading up to my electroshock treatment, I had been living in an Augustinian institute for the mentally unstable. That translates roughly as the loony bin, in case you couldn't tell. Prior to these 4 years, I lived with my parents. We dealt with my mental illness as a family, and despite any preconceived notions you may have, we were happy. Mom would make breakfast for me every morning, and Dad would watch TV with me. Our house was a safe place for me, and I actually had a better time dealing with hallucinations when I was at home. With me being so messed up in the head, I was kind of surprised at how perfect my family was. Lorena Batista, can you read a Forest Ranger story for me, please? Hopefully we have some time here. We're kind of, with this story going into 7 o'clock hour, we're kind of pushing it a bit, but I will be sure. If not on this stream, this note here actually saves on the computer just automatically, so I'll be able to kind of just jump right into that next time too, which is cool. So you would be first on the queue. Then, quick as a wink, that life ended. My parents went out for a night on the town. Heavy rain was pouring down that night. I remember it keeping me awake. Apparently, the soaked cobble road was a bad match for the tires of my parents' car, and they skidded off into a ditch. Neither one of them made it out, and that's all I'm going to say about it. It's a touchy subject for me, as you can imagine. With no relatives left, I was placed in the care of my physician, the aforementioned Dr. Marcus. He and the other doctors had only one goal in mind for me: get me healthy enough to boot out the front door so they can bring in another guinea pig. Bad news for them, none of their drugs worked. I was carefully monitored for the next 4 years, bringing us back to the electroshock and the events that took place afterwards. I sat down on my bed and retrieved my sketching supplies from the drawer. When I would get really bored, it would help to draw something interesting that happened from the day. Well, I had been resting for most of the day, which really only let the strange flashcard to consider. I drew my rendition of Dr. Marcus holding up the card. When I tried to draw what was on the card, though, I couldn't. I didn't remember what it was. I do now, obviously, but for some reason, at that moment, it was as though the card was blank both on paper and in reality. I laid back in my bed, getting a headache. I wanted the day to end, and so, despite having rested for 15 hours post-op, I fell asleep. I woke up very early the next morning. I didn't have access to a clock or a watch, but there was no light streaming in through the barred window above my head. It must have been before dawn. The doctors didn't open the doors until 8 each morning, so I was stuck in there in my boredom, waiting. I didn't want to wake the person in my room across the hall from me, so I left my lamp off. Instead, I sat in the darkness just waiting. Out of the corner of my eye, I thought I saw something in my room. I turned to look, but found nothing. As I rolled back to face the door, however, I came face to face with a horrific sight. Utter darkness. A shadow in a room of shadows, and 2 white stars coalesced in a humanoid form. The monster from the card had followed me. It had crawled on all 4s onto my bed, and it was at eye level, just inches from my face. Its white pinprick eyes stared into mine, a void of emotion, lacking in characteristic. I clamped my eyes shut and curled into the fetal position. I started crying, praying for it to be over. I could hear it right next to me. It was breathing in my ear. The hot breath emanated from nowhere, as the monster had no mouth or nose. It stayed there for minutes on end, just breathing louder and louder. I almost wished that it would just get it over with. Then, quickly as it started, the breathing ceased. Only the hum of electricity remained coming from the walls. I didn't open my eyes for a very long time, too scared of what I might see. When I finally did open them, it was still dark and the creature was gone. I quickly flipped on the lamp to make sure it wasn't hiding in the shadows. My room was devoid of inhabitants, save for me. I started to calm down and quickly became embarrassed. I didn't envy the nurse that would have to take my pants to be washed. That's me, guys. I'm the nurse that has to do that. Across the hall, I could hear someone stirring. I figured it was a patient, but I didn't want to be left in the dark again. I angled the light away from the door as best as I could, and tried to go back to sleep, to no avail. Eventually the sun rose and the doors were unlocked. The nurses gave me a change of clothes, clearly annoyed and a little disgusted. I told Dr. Marcus about what happened to me, for no other reason than to let him document it. He was obviously concerned for me and decided to give me some meds to help me with the hallucinations. I took them gladly. No way did I want to see that again. The drugs had side effects, but they sure as hell worked. I didn't see anything out of the ordinary for months. I was relieved after the first week that I actually thanked Dr. Marcus for all he had done for me. The look on his face was priceless. I really mean it, and he could tell. I think he lightened up for me after that. He actually started taking an interest in my issues and in helping me with the side effects of my meds. For 3 months, my life at the Institute was the best it had ever been. Then, in a moment of stupidity, I slipped up. One of the nurses forgot to prepare my psych meds, and I forgot to remind them. I didn't even realize that the mistake had occurred because even off the pills, everything was fine. I still slept soundly that night and the night after and saw nothing strange either day. The third day off my meds, however, would prove to be a moment of clarity for me. I woke up to the sound of my door being unlocked. I flipped on my lamp sleepily before opening my eyes. There wasn't a doctor standing there to greet me this time, just the open door. I got out of bed and stepped out into the hall. I turned and closed the door behind me, locking it back up, and looked down the hallway. Oops. Sorry, guys. I had to click on something here. Okay. And froze solid at what I saw. I wasn't in the asylum anymore. I was in... I don't know. I can't adequately name the horror that now faced me. I always pictured hell as being fiery and smelling of brimstone. This wasn't hell. This was visceral. The hall had been contorted into a fleshy mess. Horrible-smelling fluids leaked from sores in the walls and blood coated the squishy, vein-covered floor. The doors to other rooms were replaced with sphincters, and down the hall I could see a figure standing with its back to me. I could hear it sobbing. I tried to turn around, but every muscle in my body locked. Something inside of me knew that whatever was behind me would be far worse than what was in front of me. I looked back to the door of my room, only to find that it wasn't there. The intestinal tunnel I was in had overtaken the door. I could see the knob and the folds of flesh, though. I thought, if I can just get back through the door, it will be all right. I don't know why. Out of pure horror, I concocted the notion that my room was a safety net. It was a stupid idea, but I tried it anyways. Nowhere else to go, regardless, except toward the figure. That was the last thing I wanted to do. A butthole hall, yeah. Crawling through it now. I tried to reach for the knob, and the flesh closed around it. I pushed through the slimy, squishy mess until I felt my knuckles touch the knob, and I took hold of it. The wall clamped down on my arm, crushing bone and trapping me there. The figure stood and turned and walked toward me, still The figure stood and turned to walk toward me, still sobbing. Its pitch-black skin was broken only by its pinprick white eyes, which leaked a gray fluid that oozed down its cheeks. The sobbing grew louder and louder, becoming like a banshee's wail. Somehow echoing off the twisting walls of flesh, it stood perfectly still a few feet from me, and the gray slime continued to dribble out. My crushed arm felt like it was on fire, and my blood sloshed to the floor, mixing with gore. I started crying out for help, and inside, I was praying that this was a dream or vision. Then, for the first time, the monster spoke. A horrible, ghastly, grating voice. It was utterly inhuman, and that alone gave me strong goosebumps over my entire body. There was no movement of its face, as it had no mouth with which to speak. This made the sound all the more horrible, but it was what the creature said that was truly terrifying. "We are in you now, and you are in us. Neither can escape, and you cannot stop us now." My knees gave out, and I dropped to the floor, sloshing the various fluids where I hit. I started bawling, waiting for whatever horrible things the shadow had planned for me. I felt warm hands on my shoulders, and I flinched, cringing away from the evil being that had caught me in this web of sinew. It spoke again. "Ray, are you with us? Ray?" I looked up to find Dr. Marcus holding my shoulders, trying to help me. The hallway was normal again, as was my door. My arm had healed. Dr. Marcus pulled me to my feet, but I was still unable to stand well, and I was crying my eyes out as he helped me to his office. It was more than an hour before I calmed down enough to tell him what had happened. I spared no detail, watching as his face switched between visages of horror, disgust, concern, and outright fear. These looks made me more frightened because this was the only time I ever saw Dr. Marcus afraid of what a patient reported seeing. He made certain that the nurses never forgot my meds again. They didn't work anymore, though. I don't know why. I was really scared of this, though, because I was still hallucinating. Flames in the hallway, meals made of maggots, and the damnable creatures that stalked me in the darkness in my room. Once they realized that nothing was helping me more, they had no choice but to cast me out. I couldn't benefit from their type of help anymore, and they needed the space. I went back to the home I knew before. It had been 27 days, and each day the visions get more and more intense. The starry-eyed shadows have been following me everywhere. The only place they can reach me is in my home. They've gotten more creative since the asylum. Everywhere I go, the scenery and people turn into fleshy piles and shadows all in the blink of an eye. Sometimes the people wouldn't be shadows, but instead twisted, mutilated corpses. It doesn't stop there. If I try to go anywhere, they corner me, cut me open, burn me. I feel everything, the agonizing pain of mutilation. It's torture, literally. I can't go anywhere. I'm starting to run out of food. I don't trust canned goods at all anymore. It's like a goddamn game of surprise. What's inside this time? A bunch of eye strands of hair? The distortions have invaded my home. Even now, the walls in the living room are pulsating like a heartbeat, and the TV only shows static. I don't think anyone will believe me, and I'm scared to go outside. They have me surrounded, and I think they are waiting for me to leave. That was a pretty good one. Kathleen Lewis is what's the email to submit stories. So it's let's read submissions@gmail.com, but you can also submit stories to the subreddit, reddit.com/r/let's read official. So just r let's read official in Reddit lingo. Yeah, I can put that there real quick for you. I have 2 wives now, apparently. I have converted to polygamy. And that is now my life. Soon I will have 2 alimonies to pay for. 3 wives and a husband. All right, now that's a bit of a... Honestly, I feel like we could start a pretty good village. Nice little village with that. Oh, polyamory. Been seeing that word a lot more recently. It seems like people are kind of open to the idea. I don't think I could do it. Wouldn't be able to keep everybody happy. Nisha Chowdhury with the $10 says, I'm free now, but not sure how much longer you'll be on, but true story, please. Glad you're still on. Woo. Yeah, let me... So we had... Batista had requested a forest story, and Nisha... It was like a forest ranger story. I don't know These might be the last ones that I'll be able to squeak in here before the new video drops. We got a whole polyamorous village going, guys. Yeah, too much stress, too many anniversaries to remember, guys. That's the tough part. See, you gotta think about that ahead of time. Don't go into these Mormon, Salt Lake City polygamy relationships until you realize that you're gonna have about 50 presents to buy, and not enough patience to deal with it all. Batista Forest Ranger. We got bridesmaids. We got the whole wedding party in this chat right now. It's great. Let's read. Do you take these 50 individuals to be your lawfully wedded bride and or bride-o? A few years ago, my friend Tez and I set out on the Great American Road Trip. We were going to drive from New York to Los Angeles, zigzagging through the country for 6 weeks. We were both in our early 20s, pretty broke, and as my mom had been a long-haul trucker, I suggested that to save a ton of money, we should sleep in the back of our hatchback. It was a pretty cozy setup. We bought some blankets and sheets at Goodwill and cut one of them up to make curtains. By the end of the first week, we'd gotten so we could set up camp in about 10 minutes, luggage moved to the front, curtains up, bedding laid down and out for the night. We slept in parking lots, free campsites, rest areas, basically anywhere it seemed safe and semi-legal. There was never a night, after the first night, where we felt scared until the last week of the trip in Arizona. We were near Flagstaff and had gotten pretty used to our routine. We didn't go on a set schedule and would never drive more than 3 or 4 hours a day. No destination really in mind, outside of a few must-see landmarks. We'd drive to places we found the night before on Google and take suggestions from other campers, locals, and people we met. We also got very good at making friends. We went to Denny's with a group of rednecks we met at a campsite in the back of their pickup because I got hungry and overheard them saying that they were going to go. We met an 80-year-old cowboy who took us out drinking and taught us how to line dance at a country bar. Hoping you're still kicking, Grandpa Mac. Played the guitar with some musicians in the middle of a thunderstorm. Got fed breakfast and dinner by a ton of campers who invited us to hang out with them. Spent the 4th of July with a family who basically adopted us into their campsites. Grandma gave us some weed candy. Basically every encounter we had with a stranger was a positive one. This night didn't look to be any different. We found a free campsite on Google and drove up into the woods, following our GPS. We were pretty far out of town and something seemed a little bit off when we pulled up to the campsite. There was one RV parked and 2 cars further up in the trees. We pulled up near the RV and a man opened the door. Tez waved hello and he just stared at her. His expression was completely blank. Then, as if though she hadn't said anything, he just slowly closed the door again, staring at us the entire time. Figuring he just wanted some privacy and thought we'd be obnoxious, we pulled further down the road and found a flat spot to park the car. Instead of our usual routine of setting up camp immediately while it was still light out, we goofed around for a while, smoking and laughing and taking dumb photos of ourselves. Tez pointed out a campfire further down the campsite, and we decided to go be friendly. We met so many cool people in the previous 5 weeks by just going up and offering beer or just chatting, so we wandered over. Near the campfire there were 2 men, the owners of the cars we'd seen earlier. They seemed friendly, and we sat down to chat with them. They were drinking and smoking, and we sat down and had a beer with them. One of the men seemed pretty off, and we came to find out that the 2 of them didn't actually know one another. The older man was definitely on some sort of drugs. He was spinning in circles and talking about UFOs. However, he seemed harmless. This left us chatting with a younger man who claimed to be a former park ranger. He was handsome and easygoing, and we spent several hours just chatting about our trip, families, everything. Then he started talking about the bear. He had seen a bear earlier in the forest. Tez didn't believe him, and he pulled out his camera to show her photos of the bear. It was very close to the campsite, and we both were a little freaked out. It wasn't unheard of for one of us to get up to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night, so the idea of a bear hanging around in the night spooked us. The ranger just laughed, and then his expression changed completely. It's hard to describe, but his voice seemed somehow cold. He said, "If you get out of your car in the middle of the night, it's not a bear you should be worried about." I kept waiting for him to laugh or for him to nudge Tez with his elbow. Jokes on the foreigner and the city girl, right? He never did. I laughed awkwardly and made a dumb joke about serial killers in the woods. My friend laughed as well and joked about Texas Chainsaw Massacre. We moved on to another subject, but within 5 minutes the ranger had come back to it and was talking about something grabbing us from our car in the middle of the night. No matter how we tried to steer the conversation away from serial killers, he kept latching back on. The older man was high as a kite at this point and was staring at the stars, not talking. We just awkwardly laughed and sipped more beer and tried to get the conversation going somewhere. Then the ranger stood up and walked towards the cooler to get another beer. At this point it's pitch black out and I can't see anything outside the circle of light from the campfire. The beer cooler was outside that circle. Suddenly there is a red dot in the darkness, and it took a moment for me to realize that it's a camera. The ranger is holding a camera. He had taken a photo of us. I could see the screen on the digital camera lit up. Now, it wasn't odd for people we met to ask to take pictures with us. My friend Tez is gorgeous, dark hair, blue eyes, like a young Megan Fox, and we were friendly. People like having pictures of ourselves. It was an entirely strange thing to have this person taking a photo of us, without asking or even indicating that is what they were doing. We were both staring at him like a deer in the headlights at this point, but instead of realizing what he's doing is a bit weird, he checks his camera, adjusts some things, and takes another photo. This time with the flash, not asking us to smile, no proposing a group photo, and no explanation. After this photo, he comes back to the fire and sits down. Not a word said about the photo. At this point, me and Tez are mutually freaked out. We make some BS excuse that we need to go set up our campsite and nope the hell out. When we stand to leave, the UFO guy smiles and says to have a good night. Ranger, however, looks at us with a smile that doesn't reach his eyes and says, "Be careful out there. There's more than bears in the woods." Every hair on my body stood on end. I wasn't alone in my discomfort either, because Tez laughed a response out and pulled me away from the campfire towards their car. We rushed back to the car, which we only found in the dark by referencing the RV, and jump in the front seats. My friend Tez is all but hyperventilating. "Why did he take a picture of us?" I was shaking, and I responded, "I read that serial killers sometimes warn their victims." She stared at me for a second and locked the car doors. "Do you think he just took victim photos of us?" We both freaked out. She, in a full panic, and turns the headlights on in the car, immediately yell at her to turn them off because now he knows exactly where our car is. God knows why, but that is the only night we'd not set up camp. We didn't need to tear anything down, so we just put the car in drive and floored it out of the campsite. As we got onto the dirt road, Ranger was walking towards our car with that same cold expression. And I hope we never have to see his cold gaze again. What? Why are we talking about me without a mouth? I don't know why. I have missed the context of that conversation. All right, Batista, thank you for your request, and Nisha would like to hear a true story. Thank you, Nisha, for donating. It's kind of you, and so basically around the winter of last year, I started getting closer with a girl who went to my school. But unfortunately at the time she had to move away, although I continued to message and have calls with her over Facebook Messenger. About a month passes of us texting and calling, and I finally asked her out. She says yes, and at the time I was so happy, but that didn't last long because things definitely started to go downhill after a couple of weeks of us dating. Now for some context, I'm a male, and around the time of me dating her, I started to develop an eating disorder. She had always vented to me about her family issues and such, so I thought it was fine for me to try and talk to her about some of the things I had been going through. That was the first mistake, because her response to me trying to approach her with my issue was, "Bye, I don't like people who have to show everyone that they have problems, bye." I was so shaken by this, I just wrote back, "I'm sorry, do you not want me to vent? I can stop talking about it." She then responded, "Then stop talking altogether." I was left feeling so useless. She didn't text me back till the next day, where she basically started talking to me like nothing had ever happened at all. This continued on throughout our relationship, and she would have random outbursts of anger and lash out at me and then text me the next day like nothing ever happened. Eventually, we split up for the better, and she still wanted to be friends. I agreed, but only because I wanted to avoid an argument. I'm not really one for any kind of drama or conflict. I usually keep to myself. She would hit me up sometimes, and I would either forget to respond, or if I did respond, it would just be simple small talk. But even after this, she claimed on multiple posts on social media that we were best friends, or whatever. Honestly, I just ignored the posts because they were harmful, so I figured there was no problem in worrying about it. Once again, this whole situation had to have a twist for the worse, because she ended up sending me self-harm photos, along with a message, "Hey, look what I did." At that point, I snapped and wrote out a full-out rant on the obvious reasons why you shouldn't just send someone self-harm photos out of nowhere, or at least give a warning. She didn't respond, and I didn't hear from her for a while until a week later, where she texted me a whole rant about people leaving her and all of that. I mostly just tried to ignore the whole rant, but the last message caught my eye and sent chills down my spine. The last message simply read, "You know the last guy who left? His name is on my leg now." That honestly creeped the shit out of me, and with that, I removed her from all social media. A week and a half later, I awake to my dog barking frantically at the front door. I wasn't expecting anyone, but I go downstairs to check anyways to see if we got a package or something. I go to look and no one is there, but it seemed like no big deal. Maybe the dog saw a squirrel or something. So I go to lay back in bed and check my phone. I see a Snapchat photo from an acquaintance from high school. I open it, and what I saw made my heart drop. It was a photo of my house, and it read, "Hey, it's my ex's name. Are you home?" I texted back, "What the fuck?" The acquaintance then responded, "She stopped by my place and said she wanted to see you." I wrote back, "Dude, I'm definitely not in the mood right now." He then responded with a photo of her with a caption, "She just wants a hug." And with that, I stopped responding, as I said I was not in the mood to deal with this. But about 10 minutes later, I hear a knock at the door, and once again, my dog starts going crazy. I shush my dog and open my door to see the acquaintance of mine who seemed to be on a phone call with someone, and my ex with her arms out, seeming to be expecting a hug. I was so scared and confused on what to do that I just half-hugged her for a second and shot back in as fast as I could, slamming the door and locking it. This, and probably the dog, woke up my brother, who was confused to see me in anxious frenzy. He calms me down, and I explain the whole situation to him. We both were very anxious and then showing up again, but thankfully I haven't seen nor heard from them in a couple of days since the whole incident took course. Oh my gosh, I'm so sweaty right now. Oh my lordy. Oh, I love you guys too. It's just like hot as bonanzas in this piece. Alright friends, well we are at that hour now, going into about 7 o'clock. I just wanted to thank all of you guys for obviously being here for the stream, and this was crazy awesome. We actually had like close to 300 people the entire stream, so that's insane and really cool. I appreciate that. I obviously hope to do more of these streams, especially on the days that I am releasing videos. I was kind of caught up with a lot of stuff over the past week, so it's hard to do it almost more than once a week sometimes. So, But yeah, thank you to everyone who donated. I really appreciate it, through Super Chat, through Streamlabs and all that kind of stuff. If you want to catch this stream later, I'll be sure to link it. It's going to be in the normal playlist, the streams playlist, as I said before, as an unlisted video. So you'll be able to catch it there. It's got the date of September 5th, 2018 on it. Easy to identify, and I try to kind of color code it a little bit as well. And yeah, thank you so much, Spooky, for moderating chat. Everyone's been super, super nice, and that's great. Check out the podcast if you haven't yet. We're on to episode 2, going to episode 3 here this Saturday, with Apple and Spotify, links down below. Check out Patreon if you want to get early access to all these narrations, like the narration that's about to come out here in about 10 minutes. It was actually already released on Patreon a day before, so that's kind of exciting to get that early and have your way with it. Submit your stories to Reddit, Let's Read Official, or submit them to letsreadsubmissions@gmail.com, and we'll get them onto the Reddit, so you might be able to see it in a subscriber horror story video. Those stories are all from you guys, which is really cool because the subreddit isn't super huge, but the story qualities have been really, really good, so that's awesome. And then if you want to grab some cool merch and just support the channel further, you can go shop.spreadshirt.com/Let's Read. Hit me up, Twitter, Instagram, slide into them DMs, you know what I'm saying? Or just follow whenever I'm going to be posting new videos and that kind of stuff. So I will be promoting all the time on there and saying a bunch of other very silly, nonsensical things. And then also, if you enjoyed the background music that was in today's video, that is Iron Cthulhu Apocalypse, and he is a beast of a royalty-free ambient artist, so be sure to check him out. And guys, thank you so much. What we're going to do is this video is going to come up on the page. I'll make that onto the stream playlist, and then as soon as that is done, I'm releasing the new video. It's over an hour long, so if you can't get enough of the voice, I will be right with you, kind of in a disembodied form, very shortly with some more creepy true stories here. So thanks so much, guys. I hope you have a great rest of your night and day wherever you are in the world, and I'll see you again soon. Oh yeah, if you can link the Discord, I'll link that there for you.